Hey everyone, tonight we begin with something quietly captivating. The unhurried rhythm of daily life in the Ottoman Empire, not from the marble halls of sultans or the thunderous clash of battlefields, but from the humble workshops where skilled hands shaped metal, clay, and silk into objects of beauty and purpose. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Picture this. It's 4:30 in the morning in 16th century Istanbul. The call to dawn prayer echoes across the city's 7 hills, drifting through narrow streets lined with workshops where the heartbeat of the empire's economy lies. In sleeping a modest building near the Grand Bazaar, Mehmet the silversmith stirs on his thin mattress. The stone floor beneath is cold, but he's used to it. Above him, his wife and 3 children sleep soundly in the family quarters, while below, his workshop waits in darkness, tools arranged precisely where he left them the night before. This isn't the story of sultans or generals. This is the story of the forgotten majority, the skilled artisans whose patient hands created the objects that fill palaces and peasant homes alike. Men and women who rose before dawn and worked until dusk, following rhythms unchanged for centuries. Their lives weren't dramatic, but they were deeply human, shaped by the quiet satisfaction of craft mastery and the endless repetition of daily routine. Mehmet rises slowly, his joints protesting after yesterday's long hours hunched over delicate metalwork. He performs his ablutions in the small courtyard behind his workshop, the water shockingly cold against his skin. The dawn prayer must be observed first, always first, before the day's work can begin. In the distance, he can hear other craftsmen stirring, the soft murmur of voices, the creak of wooden shutters opening. The guild system that governed Mehmet's life wasn't just about economics. It was about belonging, about finding your place in the vast tapestry of Ottoman society. Every silversmith in Istanbul knew his position, his responsibilities, his rights. The guild headman, the Kethuda, would visit the workshops regularly, ensuring quality standards were maintained, that apprentices were being properly trained, that no one was undercutting established prices. It was a system built on trust and tradition, where reputation mattered more than rapid profit. After prayer, Mehmet descends to his workshop. The space is small but efficiently organized. Hammers of different weights hang from wooden pegs. Anvils of various sizes occupy strategic positions. Sheets of silver, carefully wrapped in cloth, rest in wooden chests. Every tool has its place, every material its proper storage. This organization isn't just practical, it's spiritual. A master craftsman's workshop reflects his character, his commitment to the discipline that has sustained his family for generations. His eldest son, Ahmed, already 14 and 3 years into his apprenticeship, is waiting by the cold forge. The boy has been up for an hour, sweeping the floor, organizing materials, preparing the workspace for the day's labor. He moves quietly, efficiently, having learned that unnecessary noise or wasted motion earns sharp correction. The apprenticeship system was harsh but fair. Masters invested years in their pupils, providing food, shelter, and training in exchange for absolute obedience and dedication. Ahmed's day began even earlier than his father's. First, he lit the charcoal in the forge, coaxing flames from carefully arranged tinder. Then came the endless small tasks that keep a workshop running. Sorting scraps of precious metal by type and quality, preparing the clay crucibles used for melting, checking that water buckets were full for cooling heated metal. These weren't mindless chores. Each task taught patience, attention to detail, respect for materials and tools. The relationship between master and apprentice was complex, built on mutual dependence. Mehmet remembered his own apprenticeship 20 years earlier, the aching muscles, the burned fingers, the frustration of failing to achieve the perfect curve or join. But he also remembered the moment when understanding dawned, when his hands finally learned to obey his vision. That moment, when apprentice becomes journeyman, was worth every difficulty. By sunrise, the workshop is fully alive. The forge glows red, casting dancing shadows on stone walls, blackened by decades of smoke. Mehmet begins his examination of yesterday's work, a delicate silver chalice commissioned by a wealthy merchant. The piece requires another day's labor, careful engraving around the rim, polishing to bring out the metal's natural luster. It's the kind of work that built reputations, the slow accumulation of satisfied customers who would recommend his services to their friends. The morning light filtering through the workshop's small windows reveals the true scope of Mehmet's craft. Silver ingots await transformation. Partially completed pieces rest on wooden shelves. Sketches on parchment show designs for future commissions. This workshop produces more than objects, it produces culture. The geometric patterns engraved on silver bowls, the flowing calligraphy decorating ceremonial weapons, the delicate filigree work on jewelry, all reflect centuries of artistic tradition passed from master to apprentice. Ahmed watches his master work, noting how experienced hands test the metal's temperature, how skilled fingers shape silver without leaving unwanted marks. Learning silversmithing isn't just about techniques, it's about developing intuition, the ability to feel when metal is ready for the next stage of work, to know by sound whether an alloy has reached proper consistency. These skills can't be taught through words alone. They require years of observation, practice, failure, and gradual improvement. The sounds of the workshop district are beginning now. Hammering from the copper workers 2 streets over. The rhythmic thud of textile looms from the weaving quarter. Voices of merchants opening their stalls in the nearby bazaar. Istanbul's artisan neighborhoods weren't just places of work, they were communities where families had lived and labored for generations. A silversmith's son became a silversmith. A potter's daughter married into a family of ceramicists. Skills, connections, and traditions flowed through bloodlines like precious metals through carefully maintained molds. Mehmet's wife, Aishi, appears at the workshop entrance with a tray of morning tea and flatbread. She doesn't enter the workspace itself, that would be improper, but her presence reminds both master and apprentice that craft and family are inseparably linked. The silver that Mehmet shapes will buy food for his table, clothes for his children, dowry for his daughters. The workshop supports the household, but the household sustains the workshop through the care and sacrifice of wives and mothers. The tea break provides a moment for instruction. Mehmet explains to Ahmed why silver must be annealed, heated and cooled to prevent cracking during detailed work. He demonstrates the proper way to hold a small hammer, how to strike with controlled force, how to move the workpiece gradually to create even texture. These lessons blend practical knowledge with deeper wisdom about patience, precision, and respect for materials that take skill to work and money to replace. As the morning progresses, other sounds join the workshop symphony. The call of street vendors selling yogurt and fresh bread, children playing in narrow alleys between buildings, the clip-clop of horses and donkeys carrying goods to market, women chatting as they draw water from the neighborhood fountain. These sounds form the backdrop of artisan life, the comfortable rhythm of community that made even the hardest labor bearable. The guild system extended far beyond individual workshops. It provided social security, ensuring that injured craftsmen and their families wouldn't starve. It settled disputes between artisans, maintained quality standards, and negotiated with government officials on behalf of the entire craft community. Guild membership came with obligations, regular contributions to common funds, participation in religious festivals, obedience to elected leaders. But it also provided protection, identity, and belonging in a world where individual survival was often precarious. Mehmet's own path to master craftsman status had taken 15 years, 7 years as an apprentice, learning basic techniques and developing the physical strength needed for metalworking. 5 years as a journeyman, perfecting his skills while working under the supervision of established masters. 3 years saving money and building reputation before finally opening his own workshop and gaining permission to take apprentices. It was a long journey, but it produced craftsmen whose skills were recognized throughout the known world. The morning light grows stronger, revealing the intricate details of objects scattered throughout the workshop. Silver cups engraved with verses from the Quran. Decorative plates featuring geometric patterns that seem to flow and shift as light moves across their surface. Jewelry incorporating precious stones set with mathematical precision. Each piece represents hours of concentrated labor, the application of techniques refined over generations, the marriage of utility and beauty that characterized Ottoman decorative arts. Ahmed's tasks gradually become more complex as the morning progresses. Instead of just organizing materials, he's allowed to help prepare silver sheets for shaping. He learns to judge thickness by touch, to spot imperfections that must be hammered out before detailed work begins. His young hands are already developing the calluses that mark a metalworker, the slight tremor of muscles, learning to control precision tools. In 5 years, if he proves worthy, he might attempt his first independent project under his master's watchful eye. The relationship between raw materials and finished objects fascinates anyone who watches artisans work. A lump of silver, cold and shapeless, gradually transforms through patient labor into something useful and beautiful. The transformation isn't magical, it's the result of knowledge accumulated over centuries. Techniques passed from generation to generation, skills honed through endless repetition. Every hammer blow, every turn of the file, every moment of careful polishing contributes to the final result. But artisan life wasn't just about individual achievement. It was about maintaining traditions that gave meaning to daily labor. The patterns engraved on silver vessels weren't random decorations. They were visual languages that connected craftsmen to their cultural heritage. The techniques used to join metals weren't just practical methods. They were inherited wisdom that linked present practitioners to ancestral masters. Working silver wasn't just a trade. It was participation in an ongoing conversation between past, present, and future. The morning call to prayer for Zuhr, the midday devotion, interrupts work throughout the artisan quarter. Mehmet carefully sets down his tools, washes his hands and face, and joins the stream of craftsmen walking toward the neighborhood mosque. This break in the working day isn't seen as lost time. It's understood as necessary pause, a moment to remember that earthly labor serves higher purposes. The prayers offer perspective, reminding busy craftsmen that their skills are gifts to be used responsibly, that their prosperity comes through divine blessing as well as human effort. Prayer also provides social connection. In the mosque courtyard, Mehmet exchanges greetings with other guild members, discusses market conditions with merchants, hears news from travelers recently arrived from distant provinces. These informal conversations often prove as valuable as formal business meetings. A word about a wealthy customer looking for particular objects, information about new sources of raw materials, warnings about political developments that might affect trade routes. The mosque serves as community center, as well as house of worship. After prayers, the walk back to the workshop offers a moment of quiet reflection. The cobblestone streets of the Artisan Quarter are worn smooth by centuries of foot traffic. Each building tells its own story through architectural details. The slight lean of upper floors, the weathered wooden shutters, the small courtyards glimpsed through half-open doors. This neighborhood has been home to metalworkers for over 200 years, and that continuity shapes everything from property values to marriage arrangements. The afternoon work session begins with the most demanding tasks. Silver is most malleable when properly heated, and the forge has been burning steadily since dawn. Mehmet selects a partially completed piece, a decorative bowl destined for a wealthy merchant's dining room. The metal must be shaped while warm but not hot enough to weaken the carefully planned alloy. Too much heat ruins the work entirely. Too little makes the metal resistant to forming. The difference is measured not by instruments, but by experience, the accumulated wisdom of thousands of similar moments. Ahmed observes as his master begins the delicate process of raising the bowl's sides. Each hammer blow must be precisely placed, perfectly controlled. The silver responds to gentle persuasion, gradually taking the desired form. Impatience leads to cracked metal and wasted materials. Excessive force creates irregularities that require hours of additional work to correct. The rhythm of hammering becomes almost meditative, a steady percussion that marks the passage of afternoon hours. The workshop attracts occasional visitors during these afternoon sessions. Other craftsmen stop by to examine techniques or discuss shared challenges. Customers arrive to check progress on commissioned pieces or negotiate terms for new projects. Children from the neighborhood peer through the doorway, fascinated by the transformation of dull metal into gleaming objects. These interruptions don't disturb the work rhythm. They're part of the social fabric that makes artisan life bearable. One visitor this afternoon is Hassan, a fellow silversmith whose workshop specializes in religious objects. His current project involves creating a new minbar, the ornate pulpit used during Friday sermons at the district mosque. The metalwork must be both beautiful and symbolically appropriate, incorporating calligraphic elements and geometric patterns that reflect Islamic artistic principles. Such commissions require not only technical skill, but also theological knowledge, understanding of religious symbolism and artistic conventions that govern sacred objects. The conversation between Mehmet and Hassan reveals the complexity of artisan social networks. They discuss not just techniques and materials, but also family news, guild politics, and economic trends. Hassan's eldest daughter is approaching marriageable age, and Mehmet's second son might prove a suitable match. Such arrangements aren't just personal matters. They're strategic alliances that strengthen both families and create new channels for sharing knowledge and resources. Marriage negotiations among artisan families consider craft compatibility, financial stability, and reputation within the guild structure. The afternoon light filtering through the workshop windows creates perfect conditions for detailed work. Mehmet begins the careful process of engraving decorative patterns around the bowl's rim. Each line must be perfectly straight or precisely curved. The depth of engraving must remain consistent throughout the pattern. A single mistake can ruin hours of previous labor. The engraving tools, some inherited from his own master, others crafted to his specific requirements, feel like extensions of his hands after decades of use. Ahmed's role in this phase of work involves maintaining the workspace and observing technique. He keeps tools clean and properly arranged, ensures adequate lighting by adjusting the position of polished metal mirrors that redirect sunlight, and most importantly, watches every movement of his master's hands. Learning to engrave silver requires developing muscle memory that can only come through years of practice. The pressure needed to cut clean lines, the angle at which tools must be held, the rhythm that prevents trembling. All these skills develop gradually through observation and repetition. The patterns being engraved aren't arbitrary decorations. They follow established conventions that connect this particular bowl to centuries of Islamic decorative tradition. Geometric forms based on mathematical principles that reflect divine order, stylized floral motifs that suggest paradise without depicting specific plants or flowers, calligraphic elements that incorporate Quranic verses or religious invocations. These patterns aren't just beautiful, they're meaningful, connecting everyday objects to spiritual concepts that give deeper significance to material possessions. As the afternoon progresses, the sounds from the street begin to change. Market vendors call out reduced prices for goods that must be sold before evening. Children return from Quran school, their voices mixing with the general noise of community life. Women emerge from houses to draw water from public fountains or visit neighbors. The rhythm of the day shifts from the focused intensity of morning work toward the more social atmosphere of evening preparation. The guild system's influence becomes apparent during these afternoon hours. A representative from the Metalworkers Guild arrives to inspect recent work and collect monthly dues. These visits aren't unwelcome intrusions. They're necessary maintenance of the system that protects artisan interests. The guild ensures that quality standards are maintained, that apprentices receive proper training, that master craftsmen fulfill their obligations to students and customers. In return, guild membership provides legal protection, social security, and collective bargaining power with suppliers and government officials. The inspection process reveals the careful balance between individual creativity and collective standards. Each craftsman develops personal techniques and stylistic preferences, but all work must meet guild specifications for materials, construction methods, and finished quality. This system prevents substandard products from damaging the reputation of all guild members, while still allowing for artistic innovation within established parameters. The guild representative examines Mehmet's recent work with the practiced eye of someone who understands both technical requirements and market expectations. Mehmet's relationship with his materials reflects decades of accumulated knowledge. He can judge the quality of silver alloys by color, texture, and response to heating. He knows which suppliers provide consistently reliable materials and which ones require careful examination of every shipment. The storage and care of precious metals involves considerations of security, preservation, and efficient organization. Raw materials represent significant financial investment, and their proper management directly affects workshop profitability. The economic realities of artisan life become more apparent during afternoon business discussions. Raw material costs fluctuate based on political stability, trade route security, and seasonal variations in mining output. Customer demand shifts according to economic conditions, religious calendar events, and fashion trends among wealthy urban populations. Successful craftsmen must balance artistic integrity with market awareness, maintaining quality standards while adapting to changing customer preferences and economic pressures. Ahmed's education includes gradual introduction to these business aspects of craft life. He learns to calculate material costs, estimate labor time for different types of projects, and understand the relationship between quality and price. These aren't just practical skills, they're survival knowledge in a competitive marketplace where reputation and profitability determine whether workshops thrive or fail. The apprenticeship system ensures that future craftsmen understand both the artistic and commercial dimensions of their chosen trades. The afternoon work session includes time for tool maintenance, a crucial but often overlooked aspect of craft practice. Hammers must be kept properly shaped and weighted. Files require regular cleaning to remove metal particles that reduce cutting efficiency. Measuring instruments need periodic checking against established standards. This maintenance work isn't glamorous, but it directly affects the quality of finished products. Poorly maintained tools produce inferior results, waste materials, and frustrate craftsmen attempting to achieve professional standards. The relationship between master and apprentice becomes more complex as the day progresses. Morning instruction focuses on basic techniques and safety procedures. Afternoon sessions allow for more advanced teaching, discussion of artistic principles, and gradual introduction to independent work. Ahmed is now permitted to attempt simple engraving under close supervision, his young hands guided by his master's experience. These moments of direct instruction represent the heart of the apprenticeship system, the personal transmission of knowledge that cannot be captured in written manuals or formal lectures. The workshop's location within Istanbul's Artisan Quarter provides constant exposure to other crafts and techniques. The sounds of copper hammering, woodworking, and textile production create a symphony of productive labor. Occasionally, craftsmen from other trades visit to discuss collaborative projects, or examine techniques that might be adapted to their own work. A swordmaker might consult with a silversmith about decorative elements for ceremonial weapons. A jeweler might seek advice about metalworking techniques for setting precious stones. This cross-pollination of ideas and methods contributes to the continuous evolution of craft traditions. The afternoon light begins to fade as the call to Asa, the afternoon prayer, echoes across the city. This marks another natural break in the working day, time for spiritual reflection and community gathering. The mosque fills with craftsmen, merchants, and laborers, creating a temporary democracy of faith where social distinctions blur in the face of common devotion. These prayer breaks serve multiple purposes beyond religious obligation. They provide rest for tired bodies, perspective on daily concerns, and opportunity for informal business networking. The economic significance of artisan production becomes clear when considering the broader context of Ottoman urban life. Workshops like Mehmet's don't just serve local customers, they contribute to international trade networks that stretch from Vienna to Baghdad, from Crimea to Cairo. Ottoman silverwork was prized throughout Europe and Asia for its quality, artistic sophistication, and technical innovation. The reputation of Istanbul's craftsmen opened markets that generated wealth for individual artisans and tax revenue for the imperial government. The social structure surrounding artisan life extends far beyond the workshop walls. Neighborhood relationships, guild affiliations, religious community membership, and family connections create multiple layers of identity and obligation. Success in craftwork requires not just technical skill, but also social intelligence, the ability to navigate complex networks of mutual dependence and reciprocal obligation. Mehmet's reputation depends as much on his character and reliability as on his silversmithing abilities. The apprenticeship system creates its own social dynamics within the workshop. Ahmed must balance respect for his master with healthy ambition for his own future. He observes technique carefully while avoiding the appearance of presumption. He accepts correction gracefully while demonstrating steady improvement in skill and judgment. The successful apprentice learns to read his master's moods, anticipate needs, and contribute to workshop efficiency without overstepping carefully defined boundaries. The afternoon session draws toward its close as shadows lengthen and the quality of natural light begins to deteriorate. Detailed engraving work requires excellent illumination, and oil lamps, while functional, don't provide the precise lighting needed for the finest metalwork. Mehmet carefully sets aside his engraving tools and examines the day's progress on the decorative bowl. Tomorrow will bring the final polishing stages, the careful removal of tool marks, and the gradual development of the lustrous finish that marks superior silverwork. The transition from work to evening activities follows established patterns that have governed artisan life for centuries. Tools are cleaned and properly stored. Work surfaces are cleared of metal shavings and debris. The forge fire is banked to preserve coals for tomorrow's startup. These end-of-day routines aren't just practical necessities, they're rituals that mark the boundary between professional labor and personal time, between the focused intensity of craftwork and the different rhythms of family life. Ahmed's responsibilities extend beyond normal working hours. He ensures that valuable materials are securely stored, that workshop security is maintained, and that everything is prepared for the next day's activities. These duties teach responsibility and demonstrate trust, important elements in the gradual transformation from apprentice to journeyman. The young man's growing competence is measured not just by technical skill, but by reliability, judgment, and commitment to the workshop's success. The evening call to Maghrib prayer signals the end of the formal working day throughout the artisan quarter. Workshops fall quiet as craftsmen join the stream of people walking toward neighborhood mosques. The rhythm of hammering, filing, and polishing gives way to the gentler sounds of community life preparing for evening. Children play in narrow streets, while mothers prepare evening meals. Fathers return from markets, workshops, and other places of employment, carrying news from the wider city and beyond. The evening meal in Mehmet's household reflects both the practical constraints of artisan economics and the cultural traditions that bind Ottoman families together. Aishi has spent the late afternoon preparing rice pilaf, lentil stew, and flatbread baked in the communal neighborhood oven. The ingredients are simple but carefully chosen, each serving multiple nutritional and economic purposes. Rice provides sustenance and fills hungry stomachs. Lentils offer protein that most artisan families cannot afford to obtain from meat. Flatbread serves as both food and utensil, used to scoop up stews and sauces. The family gathers on woven mats spread across the floor of their modest living space above the workshop. No chairs or tables clutter the room. Everything must serve multiple purposes in the limited space available to urban craftsmen. During the day, these same mats are rolled and stored, creating room for other activities. The evening meal transforms the space into a place of gathering, conversation, and family connection. Oil lamps provide flickering illumination, casting dancing shadows on walls decorated with simple geometric patterns that echo the more elaborate designs found in wealthy households. Mehmet's position as head of household carries both privileges and responsibilities that shape every aspect of family life. He serves himself first, as custom demands, but he also ensures that his wife and children receive adequate portions before satisfying his own hunger. The delicate balance between patriarchal authority and family care reflects broader social patterns that govern Ottoman domestic life. A man's reputation depends partly on his ability to provide for his family, maintain discipline within his household, and prepare his sons for productive adult lives. The evening conversation reveals the complex web of relationships that sustain artisan communities. Aishi reports neighborhood news gathered during her afternoon visit to the public fountain. A merchant's wife has given birth to twins. The baker's eldest son has completed his apprenticeship and received permission to marry. A fire in the textile quarter has destroyed 2 workshops, leaving several families without income. These personal stories aren't mere gossip. They're vital information about the health and stability of the community that provides both customers and social support for artisan families. Ahmed listens carefully to adult conversation while maintaining the respectful silence expected of young people in traditional households. His position as apprentice extends beyond the workshop, shaping his behavior at home as well. He serves water to family members, helps clear dishes, and prepares for evening prayers without being reminded of these duties. The discipline learned during workshop training reinforces domestic expectations, creating consistent patterns of obedience and service that will shape the economic his character throughout life. Pressures facing artisan families become apparent during evening discussions of household finances. Silver prices have increased due to reduced mining output in distant provinces, forcing Mehmet to raise prices for finished goods. However, many customers are struggling with their own financial difficulties, making them reluctant to pay higher costs for decorative objects. The delicate balance between maintaining profit margins and keeping customers satisfied requires constant adjustment, particularly during periods of political instability or economic uncertainty. Mehmet's younger children, a daughter of 10 and a son of 7, represent both hope and concern for the family's future. The daughter will require a dowry when she reaches marriageable age, necessitating years of careful saving and planning. The younger son shows promise as a potential craftsman, but his education and training will require significant investment of time and resources. Artisan families must plan decades ahead, balancing present needs against future obligations and opportunities. The evening routine includes time for religious instruction, as Mehmet reads passages from the Quran to his family. Literacy among artisans varies considerably, but most master craftsmen can read Arabic script well enough to fulfill their religious duties and conduct basic business correspondence. Ahmed's education includes religious study as well as craft training, preparing him for the full responsibilities of adult male life in Ottoman society. The integration of spiritual and practical education reflects the holistic worldview that shapes traditional Islamic culture. The sounds filtering through the thin walls of their modest home tell the story of an entire neighborhood settling into evening patterns. Babies cry and mothers sing lullabies. Older men discuss political news in neighboring courtyards. Teenagers whisper about romantic interests and future plans. Craftsmen sharpen tools and organize materials for tomorrow's work. These intimate domestic sounds create the soundtrack of community life, reminding each family that their private struggles and joys are shared experiences that bind neighbors together. Aisha's responsibilities extend far beyond cooking and childcare, though these duties consume most of her time and energy. She manages household finances with skills that rival those of professional merchants, stretching limited resources to meet family needs while saving money for future emergencies. Her knowledge of market prices, seasonal availability of goods, and neighborhood credit relationships makes her an essential partner in the family's economic survival. The domestic sphere requires intelligence, planning, and negotiation skills that are often undervalued, but absolutely crucial. The storage and preparation of food in artisan households reveals both the constraints and creativity of urban life in the Ottoman Empire. Grain is purchased in bulk when prices are low and stored in large pottery vessels that protect against moisture and pests. Vegetables are dried, pickled, or preserved in oil to extend their usefulness beyond harvest seasons. Meat, when available, is consumed immediately or preserved with salt for special occasions. Every scrap of food serves a purpose, with leftover bread becoming the basis for tomorrow's breakfast and vegetable peelings fed to neighborhood animals. The relationship between individual families and the broader guild structure becomes apparent during evening visits from other craftsmen. Tonight, Hassan, the religious metalworker, stops by to discuss a collaborative project involving silver decorations for a new mosque minbar. The conversation reveals how artisan networks operate on multiple levels simultaneously. Professional collaboration, social friendship, and potential family alliances interweave in complex patterns that strengthen the entire community while advancing individual interests. The children's bedtime routine reflects both practical necessities and cultural values that shape Ottoman domestic life. They wash their hands and faces, recite evening prayers, and settle onto thin mattresses arranged on the floor of the main living space. Privacy is a luxury that most artisan families cannot afford, with multiple generations sharing small spaces that serve multiple functions throughout the day and night. The close quarters that might seem oppressive to modern sensibilities create intimacy and security for families accustomed to communal living. Ahmed's evening duties include preparing the workshop for tomorrow's activities, a responsibility that teaches him to think ahead and anticipate his master's needs. He arranges tools in proper order, checks that water containers are full, and ensures that valuable materials are securely stored. These tasks require him to understand the full scope of silversmithing processes, not just the individual techniques he's learning to perform. The apprentice who can anticipate needs and prevent problems demonstrates the judgment necessary for eventual promotion to journeyman status. The economic calculations that occupy Mehmet's evening thoughts reveal the complexity of craft business management. Raw material costs, labor time, customer preferences, seasonal demand variations, and competition from other workshops all factor into decisions about which projects to accept and how to price finished goods. A master craftsman must be part artist, part businessman, part psychologist, understanding both the technical requirements of his craft and the human dynamics that drive customer behavior. The neighborhood's evening social life centers around the small mosque that serves this section of the artisan quarter. Men gather in the courtyard after evening prayers to discuss community concerns, share news from other parts of the city, and conduct informal business negotiations. These gatherings aren't formal meetings, but they serve many of the same functions. allowing community members to coordinate activities, resolve disputes, and maintain the social bonds that make neighborhood life functional and supportive. Women's evening activities follow different patterns, shaped by cultural expectations about appropriate behavior and social interaction. Aishi visits female neighbors to exchange domestic advice, share news about children and marriages, and participate in informal networks that provide mutual support during times of crisis. These relationships aren't just social pleasures. They're survival mechanisms that help families cope with illness, economic hardship, and other challenges that can overwhelm individual households. The preparation for sleep in Mehmet's household reflects both religious obligations and practical considerations that govern traditional Islamic domestic life. Evening prayers are recited collectively, reinforcing family unity and shared faith. Bedding is arranged to maximize warmth and comfort while respecting modesty requirements that govern interaction between family members. Oil lamps are extinguished to conserve fuel, leaving the family to settle into darkness broken only by moonlight filtering through small windows. The sounds of the neighborhood gradually fade as evening deepens into night. Workshop hammering gives way to the gentle murmur of family conversations. Children's laughter yields to mothers singing lullabies. Adult discussions of business and politics become quieter, more intimate exchanges between husbands and wives. The artisan quarter settles into the peaceful rhythm that will sustain it, until dawn calls craftsmen back to their forges, wheels, and workbenches. Ahmed's final thoughts before sleep often focus on the day's lessons and tomorrow's challenges. His hands still ache from unfamiliar tool positions, and all his mind struggles to retain the technical information his master has shared. The apprenticeship system demands not just physical endurance, but mental discipline, the ability to absorb complex information while maintaining enthusiasm for years of repetitive practice. Success requires patience, humility, and determination to master skills that can take decades to perfect. The night watch begins its rounds through the artisan quarter as families settle into sleep. These guards, appointed by the guild system and supported by community contributions, protect workshops from theft and fire while maintaining general security. Their lanterns cast moving circles of light on cobblestone streets, and their calls echo off stone walls, providing reassurance that the community remains vigilant even hours of darkness during the vulnerable. Mehmet's sleep comes easily after the long day's labor, but his rest is light, conditioned by years of awareness that workshop security requires constant attention. The slightest unusual sound might indicate fire, theft, or other emergencies that could destroy the accumulated work of months or years. Master craftsmen develop almost supernatural sensitivity to their workshops, able to detect problems even while sleeping in rooms above their places of business. The pre-dawn hours in the artisan quarter possess a unique quality, suspended between the productive activities of day and the restorative quiet of night. Mehmet stirs occasionally, checking that his family sleeps safely, listening for any sounds that might indicate problems in the workshop below. His wife shifts beside him, equally alert to the rhythms of household life that continue even during sleep. These brief awakenings aren't disturbances. They're part of the natural vigilance that protects family and livelihood. The cycle that will begin again with tomorrow's dawn call to prayer represents more than daily routine. It embodies the continuity that gives meaning to artisan life. Each day's work builds upon previous efforts, advancing long-term projects while maintaining the steady rhythm of production that sustains both individual families and the broader community. The silversmith's hammer will ring again, the apprentice's skills will slowly improve, and the ancient traditions that give purpose to manual labor will continue their journey through time. In the darkness before dawn, the artisan quarter rests, but doesn't truly sleep. The community that sustains itself through shared labor, mutual support, and inherited wisdom gathers strength for another day of patient craftwork. The skills that transform raw materials into objects of beauty and utility await the morning light, ready to continue their quiet but essential contribution to the great tapestry of Ottoman civilization. The first pale hints of dawn are still hours away when the night watchman's final call echoes through the sleeping quarter. In the darkness above his workshop, Mehmet's breathing remains steady, but his craftsman's instincts are already stirring, preparing for the rhythm that has governed his life for 20 years. Below, in the carefully organized workspace, tools wait in their appointed places like faithful servants, ready to resume their ancient dialogue with silver and flame. The pre-dawn stillness holds a particular quality that artisans learn to treasure. It's the only time when the city truly rests, when the constant percussion of hammers falls silent, when the streets empty of merchants and customers and children. In this brief interval between night's end and morning's beginning, the quarter exists in perfect suspension, gathering energy for another day of patient transformation. Ahmed stirs on his thin mattress in the corner of the workshop, his young body already conditioned to wake before the call to prayer. 3 years of apprenticeship have taught him that preparation begins in darkness, that the master craftsman who arrives to find his workspace ready gains precious minutes that accumulate into hours over the span of seasons. The boy moves quietly, feeling his way through familiar shadows to the water basin where he'll perform his ablutions. The ritual of morning washing serves purposes beyond religious obligation. The cold water shocks away sleep's lingering hold, focusing the mind for the precise work ahead. Clean hands respect the precious materials they'll touch. Fresh clothing prevents contamination of silver alloys that respond poorly to oil and grime. These aren't mere customs, they're practical wisdom accumulated through generations of craftsmen who learned that attention to detail separates masterwork from apprentice fumbling. As Ahmed kindles the first flames in the forge, using techniques taught by masters stretching back through centuries, the workshop begins its daily transformation from sleeping space to productive center. The charcoal catches slowly, requiring patience and steady breath to coax embers into reliable heat. Too much air extinguishes the struggling flame. Too little starves it into cold ash. The balance comes through practice, through the accumulated failures that teach young hands the temperament of fire. The neighborhood cats begin their morning prowl through workshop districts, their padded feet silent on worn cobblestones. These creatures serve purposes beyond companionship, keeping grain stores and fabric supplies free from rodents that would otherwise consume materials worth more than most families earn in months. The relationship between artisans and these feline guardians reflects the practical partnerships that make urban life sustainable in an age without pest modern control. Mehmet's wife rises with the efficiency born of decades managing household rhythms synchronized to her husband's craft demands. Before her own prayers, she must prepare the simple morning meal that will sustain workshop labor until midday. Barley bread from yesterday's baking, white cheese preserved in brine, olives cured in the traditional manner that transforms bitter fruit into sustaining nourishment. These foods aren't luxuries, they're fuel chosen for their ability to provide steady energy without the heaviness that slows delicate handwork. The sounds of early morning create a symphony that artisans learn to read like written music. The creak of wooden shutters opening indicates which neighbors have risen early to begin their own preparations. The splash of water in courtyard fountains tells of others performing ritual cleansing. The soft murmur of voices suggests families gathering for prayer or masters instructing apprentices in the day's priorities. Each sound carries information about the community's health and readiness. Ahmed's morning duties extend beyond mere fire tending. He must check that yesterday's workpieces have cooled properly, that no unexpected stresses have developed overnight in cooling metal. Silver work requires patience at every stage, and rushing any process invites failures that waste both materials and labor. The apprentice who learns to read the subtle signs of properly tempered metal gains knowledge that will serve throughout his career. The first call to prayer drifts across the 7 hills of Istanbul, carried by morning air that hasn't yet warmed enough to create the thermal currents that will later scatter sound and make precise timing difficult. Mehmet rises immediately, his body accustomed to this daily summons that structures not just religious observance, but the entire rhythm of productive labor. The prayers aren't interruption to work, they're the foundation that gives meaning to all earthly effort. In the small mosque that serves this section of the artisan quarter, craftsmen gather in the their faces dawn darkness, illuminated by oil lamps that cast shifting shadows on walls decorated with calligraphy, praising divine craftsmanship. The imam's voice leads familiar recitations, words that connect these working men to believers across the vast Ottoman domains. Prayer creates community across the boundaries of individual craft specialization, reminding silversmiths and coppersmiths and weavers that their separate skills serve common purposes. After prayers, the walk back through narrow streets provides opportunity for the informal conversations that maintain guild relationships. Mehmet exchanges greetings with Hassan, the religious metalworker, learning that the mosque minbar project requires additional decorative elements beyond their original agreement. Such expansions of work scope aren't unusual. Wealthy patrons often discover new requirements as projects progress, but they demand careful negotiation to maintain profit margins while preserving customer satisfaction. The morning light reveals details invisible during the previous evening's work. Silver pieces that seemed properly finished by lamplight show small imperfections requiring additional attention. The engraving on yesterday's decorative bowl needs deeper cuts in several places to achieve the visual impact the customer expects. These discoveries don't represent failures, they're normal parts of the iterative process that transforms raw materials into objects worthy of pride and premium prices. Ahmed observes his master's morning inspection routine, noting how experienced eyes detect flaws that escape apprentice attention. The ability to see work objectively, without the bias that comes from hours of concentrated effort, develops slowly through years of practice. Young craftsmen often become so focused on individual techniques that they lose sight of overall quality standards. Learning to step back and evaluate completed work critically marks an important stage in apprentice development. The forge reaches proper temperature as morning light strengthens, its red glow competing with sunbeams filtering through small windows. The transition from artificial illumination to natural light creates constantly changing working conditions that skilled craftsmen learn to exploit. Different qualities of light reveal different aspects of metal master craftsmen often work, and time-specific operations to take advantage of optimal lighting conditions for particular tasks. The morning's first major project involves annealing the silver bowl begun yesterday, heating the metal to relieve internal stresses created by hammering and shaping. This process requires precise temperature control, hot enough to restructure the metal's crystalline arrangement, but not so hot as to weaken the carefully planned alloy composition. Ahmed watches as his master judges temperature by color, a skill that takes years to develop and cannot be learned from books or verbal instruction alone. The relationship between heat and metal forms one of the fundamental mysteries that apprentice craftsmen must gradually understand. Silver responds differently at various temperatures, becoming malleable for shaping when warm, hardening as it cools, requiring reheating for further work. The timing of heating cycles affects final strength, appearance, and workability. Master craftsmen develop almost mystical sensitivity to these thermal relationships, able to predict metal behavior based on subtle visual and tactile cues. While the annealing process continues, Mehmet begins preparation of tools needed for the day's engraving work. Each implement requires individual attention, checking that cutting edges remain sharp, that handles haven't loosened from repeated use, that measuring devices still provide accurate guidance. Tool maintenance represents a significant portion of craftsman time, But neglecting this responsibility leads to inferior results and frustrated customers who won't provide repeat business. The workshop begins to fill with the familiar sounds of productive labor as other artisans throughout the quarter commence their daily routines. The rhythmic hammering of copper workers creates a steady percussion that will continue until evening. The scraping of files shaping iron tools adds higher notes to the industrial symphony. The occasional hiss of hot metal meeting water marks successful completion of heating cycles. These sounds aren't noise, they're the heartbeat of community prosperity. Ahmed's education continues through observation of his master's problem-solving approaches when unexpected challenges arise. This morning, a commissioned piece shows signs of metal fatigue that weren't apparent during initial shaping stages. Rather than discarding hours of previous work, Mehmet carefully analyzes the problem, determining whether strategic annealing might restore workability or whether the piece requires complete restart with different techniques. Such decisions require both technical knowledge and economic judgment. The morning customer brings news from the broader city that affects artisan planning and pricing strategies. Political tensions with European powers have disrupted silver imports from German mines, forcing craftsmen to rely more heavily on recycled materials and alternative supply sources. Such information travels quickly through craft networks, allowing individual workshops to adjust their business strategies before shortages become critical. The successful craftsman maintains awareness of political and economic trends that might affect his trade. Aishi's morning activities include visiting the neighborhood fountain, where women gather to exchange domestic intelligence while drawing water for household needs. These informal meetings serve functions similar to the male gatherings at the mosque, sharing information about family situations, economic opportunities, and community concerns. The knowledge gained during these sessions often proves valuable for household financial planning and social relationship management. The children's morning routine reflects their gradual integration into adult responsibilities and community expectations. Mehmet's daughter helps her mother with bread preparation, learning skills she'll need when she manages her own household after marriage. His younger son observes workshop activities from a respectful distance, beginning to absorb the atmosphere of productive labor that will shape his future career choices. Education happens through participation rather than formal instruction. The guild system's influence appears during the morning visit from the quality inspector, who examines recent work to ensure standards compliance. This isn't hostile oversight, but supportive verification that workshop output maintains the reputation upon which all guild members depend. The inspector's suggestions for minor improvements in finish quality aren't criticisms, but collaborative efforts to enhance the collective reputation that benefits every silversmith in the quarter. The morning work session includes time for planning future projects and managing the workshop's production schedule. Mehmet maintains mental inventories of work in various stages, calculating completion times and coordinating customer expectations. Some pieces require weeks of intermittent labor, with extended drying periods between stages. Others demand concentrated effort over shorter periods. Balancing these different time requirements while maintaining steady cash flow requires management skills that many craftsmen struggle to develop. Ahmed's growing competence becomes apparent in his ability to anticipate his master's needs without constant instruction. He prepares tools before being asked, adjusts lighting conditions to optimize visibility, and maintains workspace organization that facilitates efficient workflow. These supporting skills, while less dramatic than learning to shape metal, prove equally important for workshop productivity and eventual independent practice. The morning light reaches its optimal quality for detailed engraving work, prompting Mehmet to begin the decorative phase of the silver bowl project. The patterns he'll create aren't merely ornamental, they're visual representations of mathematical principles that reflect divine order in creation. Each line must be precisely placed according to geometric relationships that create harmony and balance. The work requires not just manual dexterity, but understanding of proportional systems that govern Islamic decorative arts. The engraving process demands complete concentration, blocking out the various sounds and distractions that fill the workshop district. Each tool movement must be deliberate and controlled, guided by years of practice that have trained hand and eye to work in perfect coordination. The rhythmic scraping of metal removal creates its own meditative cadence, marking steady progress toward completion of another object that will carry the craftsman's reputation into wealthy households throughout the city. Ahmed observes the engraving process with growing appreciation for the complexity hidden within apparently simple operations. What looks like straightforward cutting actually requires understanding of metal behavior, tool geometry, and artistic principles that take years to master. The apprentice, who thinks he understands technique after watching a few demonstrations, learns humility when he attempts similar work with his own inexperienced hands. The morning customer consultations reveal the social dynamics that surround luxury craft production in Ottoman society. Wealthy patrons don't simply purchase objects. They participate in extended negotiations about design, materials, timing, and pricing. These discussions require craftsmen to function as diplomats, balancing artistic integrity with customer preferences while maintaining profitable business relationships. The ability to manage difficult customers often determines workshop success more than pure technical skill. The morning break for tea provides opportunity for informal instruction about business practices and customer relations. Mehmet explains to Ahmed how to evaluate customer creditworthiness, how to structure payment schedules that protect workshop cash flow, and how to handle disputes about quality or delivery timing. These lessons aren't part of traditional craft training, but they're essential for survival in competitive urban markets where reputation and relationships determine long-term success. The sounds from neighboring workshops indicate the varied rhythms of different crafts operating within the same district. Textile work proceeds in steady, measured sequences punctuated by loom adjustments and thread changes. Pottery involves longer cycles of shaping, drying, and firing that create different temporal patterns. Woodworking generates distinctive sounds of sawing, planing, and joining that experienced ears can interpret from considerable distances. These varied rhythms create the complex symphony of productive neighborhood life. The morning's progress on the silver bowl brings satisfaction, tempered by awareness of work remaining before the piece reaches completion. The engraving will require another full day of concentrated effort. Polishing will demand additional hours of patient labor with progressively finer abrasives. Final inspection might reveal minor flaws requiring correction before the object meets standards worthy of the craftsman's reputation. Quality work cannot be rushed, regardless of customer pressure or economic necessities. Ahmed's morning observations include noting how his master manages the multiple projects simultaneously occupying workshop space and attention. Different pieces require different tools, techniques, and timing, creating complex scheduling challenges that experienced craftsmen handle through intuitive understanding developed over decades. The apprentice who learns to think systematically about workshop organization prepares himself for eventual independent practice, where such skills determine survival and prosperity. The morning light begins its gradual shift from the crisp clarity optimal for precise work toward the warmer tones that indicate approaching midday. Master craftsmen learn to read these subtle changes in illumination quality, timing their most demanding visual tasks to coincide with the best natural lighting conditions. The workshop day follows rhythms established by sun and season, rather than arbitrary clock divisions that ignore natural working conditions. The transition from morning's concentrated labor to midday's gentler pace follows patterns established through centuries of workshop tradition. As the sun climbs higher over Istanbul's domes and minarets, the quality of light filtering through small workshop windows begins to change, becoming warmer but less precise for the detailed engraving that has occupied the morning hours. Mehmet carefully sets aside his finest tools knowing that afternoon work will focus on different aspects of the craft that don't require the crystal-clear illumination needed for decorative cutting. The approach of Zur prayer creates natural pause in the workshop rhythm, but the break isn't abrupt. Master craftsmen learn to time their work phases to coincide with religious obligations, finishing particular operations before prayer calls rather than abandoning tasks mid-process. The silver bowl receives careful placement in a protective cloth. Its partially completed engraving covered to prevent dust accumulation during the extended midday break that includes prayer, meal, and brief rest. Ahmed's responsibilities during this transition period include securing valuable materials and ensuring that the forge maintains proper heat levels for afternoon work. The young man moves through these duties with growing confidence, his 3 years of training evident in smooth, efficient motions that waste neither time nor energy. The apprentice who masters these supporting tasks demonstrates readiness for more complex responsibilities that gradually prepare him for journeyman status. The walk to midday prayer provides opportunity for informal business discussions that often prove as valuable as formal negotiations. Mehmet encounters Yusuf, a copper worker whose shop produces vessels complementary to silver serving pieces. The conversation reveals potential collaboration on a large commission for a wealthy merchant's daughter's wedding, a project that could occupy both workshops for weeks while generating substantial income. Such partnerships require careful coordination, but offer advantages that individual craftsmen cannot achieve alone. The mosque yard fills with men from throughout the artisan quarter, creating temporary democracy of shared faith that transcends guild boundaries and economic competition. The silversmith prays beside the baker, the weaver beside the stone carver, all equal before divine judgment that values devotion over earthly accomplishment. These moments of spiritual unity strengthen community bonds that make neighborhood life supportive rather than merely competitive. After prayers, the traditional pause for conversation allows craftsmen to share information about market conditions, customer preferences, and technical innovations spreading through various trades. Hassan reports success with a new technique for joining metals that creates stronger bonds while remaining invisible in finished work. Such knowledge sharing benefits the entire community while establishing reputations for generosity and expertise that often lead to referral business. The midday meal in Mehmet's household reflects both seasonal availability and economic planning that characterizes artisan family life. Aishi has prepared a substantial pilaf using rice purchased during last month's favorable market conditions, supplemented with dried fruit stored from autumn's abundance and fresh vegetables obtained through careful bargaining at morning markets. The meal provides necessary energy for afternoon labor while demonstrating household management skills that directly affect workshop profitability. The family gathering for food creates space for discussions that blend domestic concerns with business considerations. Mehmet's daughter mentions conversations overheard at the fountain about a wealthy family seeking silver items for their son's upcoming marriage ceremony. Such intelligence requires careful evaluation, but it might lead to lucrative commissions if approached diplomatically through appropriate intermediaries. Artisan families function as information networks that supplement formal guild communication systems. Ahmed's participation in family meal conversations reflects his growing maturity and integration into adult responsibilities. The young man asks thoughtful questions about customer relations and business strategies, demonstrating that his education extends beyond technical craft skills to include understanding of economic realities that will govern his future career. The apprentice who thinks broadly about his trade positions himself for greater success than those who focus narrowly on manual techniques alone. The afternoon rest period that follows midday meals serves physiological and psychological functions that experienced craftsmen learn to value. The heavy morning labor, concentrated attention to detail, and constant awareness required for quality work create fatigue that affects judgment and manual precision. A brief period of relaxation allows both body and mind to recover, preparing for the different challenges that characterize afternoon workshop activities. The sounds of the neighborhood during midday break reveal the various rhythms that govern different aspects of urban life. Children play in narrow streets, while mothers complete domestic tasks postponed during busy morning hours. Merchants count earnings from morning sales while planning afternoon market strategies. The rhythm of productive labor gives way temporarily to the gentler pace of family life and community interaction that sustains the social bonds, making neighborhood existence functional and supportive. The resumption of workshop activities follows the afternoon prayer call, but the character of work shifts toward tasks requiring different skills and attention patterns than morning's precision engraving. Mehmet begins the careful process of preparing metal surfaces for the polishing stages that will transform yesterday's rough-shaped silver into the lustrous finish expected by discriminating customers. This work demands patience and systematic approach, but allows for conversation and instruction impossible during morning's concentrated cutting. Ahmed's afternoon education includes introduction to the polishing techniques that separate amateur work from professional quality. The progression from coarse abrasives to increasingly fine materials requires understanding of how different polishing compounds interact with silver alloys. Too aggressive an approach removes excessive metal and destroys carefully planned proportions. Too gentle a touch fails to eliminate tool marks that reveal the manufacturing process rather than showcasing finished beauty. The workshop receives its afternoon visitor in the person of Ibrahim, a merchant who specializes in luxury goods destined for export to European markets. His knowledge of foreign customer preferences provides valuable intelligence about design trends and quality expectations that differ from domestic Ottoman tastes. Such relationships require careful cultivation, but they offer access to markets that pay premium prices for exceptional craftsmanship. The discussion with Ibrahim reveals complexities of international trade that affect individual artisan workshops in ways not immediately obvious. Political tensions between the Ottoman Empire and various European powers create fluctuations in demand for particular types of goods. Religious differences influence decorative preferences, requiring modifications to traditional patterns for foreign markets. Currency exchange rates affect pricing strategies that must balance competitiveness with profitability. Mehmet's afternoon work on the silver bowl progresses through polishing stages that gradually reveal the full beauty hidden within shaped metal. Each level of abrasive removes scratches left by coarser materials while creating finer surface texture that reflects light more effectively. The transformation seems almost magical to observers unfamiliar with the systematic progression that creates lustrous finishes from dull, tool-marked surfaces. The polishing process requires different physical motions and mental focus than morning's engraving work, providing variety that prevents the repetitive strain injuries common among craftsmen who perform identical tasks throughout their careers. Experienced masters learn to balance various types of work across daily and weekly cycles, maintaining productivity while preserving the hand and eye coordination essential for continued high-quality output. Ahmed's observations during afternoon polishing sessions include noting how different tools and techniques affect final appearance of completed work. The direction of polishing strokes influences how light reflects from curved surfaces. The pressure applied during final finishing determines whether the surface achieves mirror brightness or retains subtle texture that enhances engraved decorations. These details seem minor to casual observers, but prove crucial for customer satisfaction and workshop reputation. The afternoon light streaming through workshop windows creates constantly changing illumination conditions that experienced craftsmen learn to exploit for different purposes. The warmer, more diffuse light of later day reveals surface imperfections that might escape detection during morning's cooler, more directional illumination. Master craftsmen adjust their work schedules to take advantage of optimal lighting conditions for various operations requiring different visual acuity levels. The sounds from neighboring workshops indicate the varied afternoon activities occupying different crafts within the district. Textile workers often use afternoon hours for complex weaving operations that require sustained concentration without the interruptions common during busy morning periods. Potter wheels spin steadily as ceramic artisans shape vessels destined for evening firing sessions. The rhythm of productive labor continues, but shifts to accommodate different energy levels and attention spans natural to afternoon work periods. Mehmet's afternoon instruction of Ahmed includes discussion of business relationships and customer service principles that don't appear in traditional craft training, but prove essential for workshop success. The young man learns to evaluate customer complaints objectively, distinguishing between legitimate quality concerns and unreasonable expectations that might damage workshop reputation if accepted without question. Such diplomatic skills often determine long-term business viability more than pure technical competence. The workshop's afternoon productivity includes progress on multiple projects, simultaneously occupying workspace and craftsman attention. A ceremonial dagger requires handle decoration, using techniques different from bowl engraving, but employing similar tools and basic principles. A set of serving spoons needs final finishing touches before delivery to a customer, whose patience has already been tested by previous delays. Managing multiple deadlines while maintaining quality standards requires organizational skills that many craftsmen struggle to develop. Ahmed's growing competence becomes apparent in his ability to assist with increasingly complex operations without constant supervision. The young man can now prepare metal surfaces for polishing without detailed instruction, select appropriate abrasive materials for different finishing stages, and recognize when surfaces have achieved proper preparation for final operations. Such progress indicates readiness for advancement within the apprenticeship hierarchy that eventually leads to independent practice. The afternoon workshop atmosphere becomes more social, as the intensity of morning concentration gives way to the steadier rhythm of finishing operations that allow for conversation and community interaction. Fellow craftsmen stop by to examine completed work, share technical information, or discuss guild business that affects all members. These informal visits strengthen the social bonds that make competitive marketplace relationships supportive rather than destructive. The economic calculations that occupy Mehmet's afternoon thoughts include evaluation of material costs, labor time, and pricing strategies for current and future projects. The silver bowl nearing completion represents 2 weeks of intermittent labor using materials worth nearly a month's wages for common workers. The pricing must reflect both actual costs and market conditions while generating sufficient profit to support household expenses and workshop reinvestment needs. The afternoon customer consultation involves delicate negotiations about design modifications requested after work has already commenced. The patron desires additional decorative elements that will require extra materials and labor time, but he resists proportional price increases that would fairly compensate for expanded scope. Such situations test craftsman diplomacy and business judgment, requiring decisions that balance customer satisfaction against economic necessity. Aishi's afternoon activities include marketing trips to purchase ingredients for evening meals and materials needed for household maintenance. Her knowledge of seasonal price cycles and vendor reliability makes her an essential partner in family financial management. The domestic economy operates on principles as sophisticated as workshop business management, requiring similar planning, negotiation, and resource allocation skills. The children's afternoon activities reflect their gradual integration into adult work patterns and community responsibilities. Mehmet's daughter accompanies her mother to markets, learning bargaining techniques and quality evaluation skills she'll need for household management after marriage. His younger son observes workshop operations more closely, beginning to understand the relationship between technical skill and economic success that will influence his future career choices. The afternoon break for tea creates opportunity for extended discussion about guild politics and community concerns that affect all artisan families. Recent changes in tax collection procedures require workshops to maintain more detailed records of materials and sales. New regulations governing apprentice treatment reflect government efforts to prevent exploitation while ensuring adequate skill transmission. Such developments demand collective response through guild organization rather than individual accommodation. The workshop's afternoon rhythm includes attention to tool maintenance and workspace organization that supports efficient operations. Polishing compounds require careful storage to prevent contamination that would affect their effectiveness. Abrasive materials must be kept separate by grade to avoid confusion that could damage delicate work surfaces. Systematic organization prevents time waste and material loss that erode workshop profitability. Ahmed's afternoon responsibilities include monitoring the forge temperature and fuel consumption that will continue into evening work sessions. The young man has learned to judge coal quality by appearance and burning characteristics, understanding how different fuel types affect metal heating and workshop air quality. Such knowledge seems peripheral to silversmithing, but proves essential for efficient workshop operation and cost control. The afternoon light begins its gradual transition toward evening's softer illumination as the sun moves lower over Istanbul's skyline. Master craftsmen learn to recognize these subtle changes in light quality and adjust their work accordingly. Operations requiring precise visual judgment receive priority during optimal lighting periods, while tasks dependent primarily on tactile feedback can continue under less ideal illumination conditions. The neighborhood's afternoon social life includes informal gatherings in workshop doorways, where craftsmen discuss technical problems, share solutions, and maintain relationships that support mutual assistance during busy periods or family emergencies. These conversations aren't merely social pleasures. They're essential maintenance of community bonds that make individual survival possible in competitive urban environments. The progression of silver bowl polishing reveals incremental improvements that demonstrate the cumulative effect of patient, systematic work. Each polishing stage removes imperfections while creating new surface qualities that enhance the object's visual appeal and tactile satisfaction. The transformation from roughly finished metal to lustrous artwork occurs through accumulated small improvements rather than dramatic single operations. Mehmet's afternoon evaluation of apprentice progress includes assessment of Ahmed's developing judgment about quality standards and work priorities. The young man shows growing ability to identify problems before they become serious, to select appropriate tools and techniques for different situations, and to balance speed with accuracy in ways that maximize productivity without compromising quality. Such mat indicates duration, readiness for increased responsibility and eventual advancement. The afternoon workshop atmosphere reflects the comfortable rhythm of established routine, punctuated by occasional challenges that test craftsmen's skill and experience. Unexpected problems with metal behavior, tool performance, or customer requirements create opportunities for problem solving that demonstrate mastery while providing teaching moments for apprentice development. The successful workshop handles such disruptions smoothly without losing productivity or quality focus. The economic pressures affecting artisan families become apparent during afternoon discussions of household finances and workshop business planning. Rising costs for raw materials, increased competition from other craftsmen, and fluctuating customer demand create uncertainties that require careful management and conservative planning. The families that thrive learn to balance optimism about future opportunities with realistic assessment of current challenges and resource limitations. The afternoon progression toward evening brings awareness of daily accomplishments and tomorrow's priorities that will continue workshop operations. The silver bowl moves closer to completion, its polished surfaces beginning to reflect the quality that justifies premium pricing and builds customer loyalty. Other projects advance through their various stages, creating steady workflow that maintains income while developing craftsman reputation for reliability and excellence. Ahmed's afternoon learning includes observation of how experienced craftsmen manage time, energy and attention across multiple simultaneous projects. The ability to shift efficiently between different types of work while maintaining quality standards in each requires organizational skills and mental discipline that develop gradually through years of practice. The apprentice who masters such time management prepares himself for the complex demands of independent workshop operation. The sounds of afternoon commercial activity filtering through workshop windows indicate the broader economic life that sustains artisan communities. Merchants call out prices for goods available in nearby markets. Customers negotiate purchases that will support craftsman families throughout the district. The circulation of money and goods creates the economic environment within which individual workshops operate and prosper. The afternoon light, streaming across polished silver surfaces, creates visual effects that reveal both the beauty of completed work and any remaining imperfections requiring correction. Master craftsmen develop sensitivity to these subtle light interactions, using them as diagnostic tools that guide final finishing operations. The interplay between crafted object and natural illumination demonstrates the aesthetic principles that elevate functional items into objects of artistic appreciation. The workshop's afternoon productivity reflects the accumulated efficiency of established routines combined with flexibility needed to handle unexpected situations. Standard procedures guide most operations, while leaving room for adaptations required by unique circumstances or special customer requirements. This balance between consistency and innovation characterizes successful craft practice throughout the Ottoman artisan community. Mehmet's afternoon thoughts include planning for evening activities that will advance workshop projects while maintaining family relationships and community obligations. The day's work creates foundation for tomorrow's progress, but the evening hours offer different opportunities for instruction, social connection, and personal renewal that sustain both individual craftsmen and broader artisan culture. The transition toward evening begins subtly as afternoon shadows lengthen and the quality of natural light starts its gradual shift toward the warmer tones that characterize late-day illumination. Workshop activities continue, but experienced craftsmen begin mental preparation for the evening routines that will conclude another day in the endless cycle of productive labor that sustains Ottoman urban civilization. The afternoon light begins to soften as the sun moves past its zenith, casting longer shadows across the workshop floor. This changing illumination signals the transition into evening work routines. Though the boundary between afternoon and evening remains fluid, determined more by natural rhythms than rigid scheduling, Mehmet examines the silver bowl with satisfaction, noting how the polished surfaces now reflect light with the mirror-like quality that distinguishes master craftsmanship from apprentice efforts. Ahmed prepares for the evening shift by organizing tools needed for the delicate operations that benefit from the gentler light of approaching dusk. Certain types of decorative work actually improve under less intense illumination, where subtle shadows reveal surface irregularities invisible in harsh midday brightness. The young man's movements show increased confidence as he anticipates his master's needs without constant instruction, a development that brings quiet pride to both teacher and student. The workshop district begins its gradual transition from daytime productivity to evening rhythms as other craftsmen adjust their activities to match changing light conditions. The sounds filtering through narrow windows shift in character, becoming less urgent, more contemplative. Hammering continues, but with different cadences. Conversations between neighbors take on the relaxed quality that characterizes the end of intensive labor periods. Mehmet's evening work focuses on the final stages of silver bowl completion. Operations requiring steady hands, but less acute vision than morning engraving. The buffing process that will create the ultimate lustrous finish proceeds through systematic application of increasingly fine polishing compounds, each stage removing microscopic scratches while enhancing reflective properties. This work allows for conversation and instruction impossible during the concentrated silence demanded by precision cutting. The relationship between master and apprentice evolves subtly during these evening sessions, when the pressure of morning deadlines gives way to gentler teaching opportunities. Ahmed asks questions about business practices, customer relations, and guild politics that reveal his growing understanding of craft life beyond pure technical skills. The young man's inquiries demonstrate intellectual curiosity that suggests future success in the complex world of urban artisan enterprise. Evening brings different types of customers to the workshop, people whose daytime occupations prevent earlier visits. A physician stops by to examine progress on a set of medical instruments requiring specialized metalworking techniques. His detailed knowledge of functional requirements creates interesting technical challenges while offering insights into professional practices outside the craft community. Such interactions broaden craftsmen's understanding of their product's ultimate purposes. The conversation with the physician reveals unexpected connections between apparently unrelated fields of knowledge. Medical understanding of human anatomy influences tool design in ways that pure aesthetic considerations cannot address. The collaboration between craftsman and professional user results in innovations that benefit both parties while advancing the overall quality of specialized implements. These cross-disciplinary exchanges represent one of urban life's greatest advantages over rural isolation. Aishi's evening preparations include planning tomorrow's household activities while managing current domestic responsibilities. Her late afternoon to neighboring visit women has provided intelligence about potential customers, family celebrations requiring ceremonial objects, and economic conditions affecting artisan families throughout the district. This information proves as valuable as formal market research in guiding workshop business decisions. The evening meal preparation reflects both seasonal constraints and family preferences that balance nutrition with available resources. Summer's abundance allows for fresh vegetables and fruits that supplement stored grains and preserved foods. The cooking process fills the modest living quarters with aromas that signal the day's transition from productive labor to family gathering and domestic tranquility. Children's evening activities include helping with meal preparation while observing adult conversations about community affairs, business concerns, and social relationships. These informal educational opportunities teach practical skills while transmitting cultural values that will guide future behavior. The integration of children into adult activities creates natural learning environments more effective than formal instruction separated from real-world applications. The workshop's evening atmosphere becomes increasingly social as the isolation required for precise work gives way to collaborative activities and community interaction. Fellow craftsmen arrive for consultations about technical problems, business partnerships, or guild matters affecting all members. These gatherings strengthen professional relationships while providing emotional support during challenging periods. Ahmed's evening responsibilities expand to include basic business tasks that prepare him for eventual independent practice. He learns to calculate material costs, estimate labor time for different projects, and understand pricing strategies that balance competitiveness with profitability. These commercial skills complement technical training while demonstrating the complex knowledge required for successful craft enterprise. The evening light filtering through small windows creates optimal conditions for certain types of metalworking operations that benefit from diffuse illumination rather than direct brightness. Surface preparation work proceeds more effectively under these conditions, where subtle variations in texture become more apparent than under harsh midday lighting. Master craftsmen learn to schedule different operations according to natural light cycles that optimize working conditions. The guild system's evening influence appears through visits from other members seeking advice, assistance, or collaboration on projects beyond individual workshop capabilities. These informal networks supplement formal guild structure while maintaining the cooperative relationships essential for community prosperity. The successful craftsman balances competition with collaboration in ways that advance personal interests without damaging collective welfare. Mehmet's evening evaluation of daily progress includes assessment of both completed work and lessons learned from unexpected challenges encountered during the day's operations. Each day brings small discoveries about material behavior, tool performance, or customer preferences that accumulate into wisdom guiding future decisions. The reflective craftsman treats every experience as educational opportunity rather than mere routine completion. The neighborhood's evening social life centers around shared spaces where families gather after individual work concludes. Courtyard conversations include discussion of community concerns, celebration of achievements, and mutual support during difficult periods. These gatherings aren't formal meetings, but serve similar functions in maintaining social cohesion and collective problem-solving capabilities. Evening brings different sounds to the artisan quarter, as daytime production noise gives way to domestic activities and social interaction. Children play games in narrow streets, while mothers call them home for evening meals. Fathers discuss business matters in small groups, while wives exchange household information at communal water sources. The rhythm of community life shifts from individual focus to collective engagement. The workshop's evening productivity includes attention to long-term projects that dawn from steady progress during less pressed, require immediate completion, but benefit work on a complex commission involving multiple piece-assured periods. Mehmet begins preliminary that will occupy the workshop for several weeks. Such can't be rushed without compromising quality. Ahmed's evening projects require careful planning and systematic execution that master manages workflow observations, include noting how his across multiple timements. The ability demands against long-term commit horizons, balancing immediate to maintain progress on various projects while meeting current DIA organizational deadlines, requires skills that develop through years of practice. The apprentice who learns to think systematically about time management prepares himself for independent workshop operation. The economic realities of artisan life become more apparent during evening discussions of household finances and workshop business planning. Material costs, customer payment schedules, and seasonal demand variations create cash flow challenges requiring careful management. The families that prosper learn to balance current consumption against future investment while maintaining reserves for unexpected expenses or opportunities. Evening meals in artisan households reflect both cultural traditions and economic constraints that shape family dietary patterns. The main dish typically consists of grain-based preparations supplemented with vegetables, legumes, and occasional small amounts of meat or fish. These foods provide necessary nutrition while remaining affordable for families whose income depends on craft production in competitive urban markets. The family gathering for evening meals creates opportunities for discussing daily experiences, sharing community news, and planning future activities. These conversations blend personal concerns with business considerations, as individual family members contribute information gathered from their various the day. The successful social interactions throughout artisan family functions as intelligence network that supplements formal guild communication systems. Mehmet's evening instruction of his children includes discussion of moral principles and behavioral expectations that complement technical craft training. The values of honesty, diligence, and respect for others prove as important for long-term success as manual skills and business knowledge. Character development receives equal attention with professional preparation in families that understand reputation's crucial role in competitive markets. The workshop's evening security preparations reflect awareness of theft and fire hazards that threaten both immediate safety and long-term economic survival. Valuable materials require secure storage, while tools need protection from moisture and damage. Fire prevention measures include careful banking of forge coals and removal of combustible materials from areas where sparks might ignite. These precautions represent essential insurance against catastrophic losses. Ahmed's evening duties include final inspection of workspace organization and security measures that protect workshop investments. The young man has learned to identify potential hazards and correct dangerous situations before they cause problems. Such vigilance becomes automatic through repetition, while demonstrating growing maturity and responsibility that justify increased trust and independence. The transition from evening work to family time follows established patterns that balance professional obligations with domestic relationships. Craft activities conclude at natural stopping points rather than arbitrary times, allowing for proper completion of delicate operations while respecting family meal schedules and religious observances. This flexibility reflects the integrated nature of artisan life, where work and personal existence blend seamlessly. Evening prayers provide spiritual focus that gives meaning to daily labor while connecting individual craftsmen to broader community and religious identity. The mosque serves as a gathering place where professional competitors unite in shared faith while social distinctions temporarily disappear in common devotion. These moments of unity strengthen bonds that make competitive marketplace relationships supportive rather than destructive. After prayers, evening conversations in mosque courtyards often focus on community concerns that affect all residents regardless of craft specialization. Discussion topics include neighborhood security, shared infrastructure maintenance, and collective responses to government policies affecting artisan families. These informal meetings supplement formal guild structures while addressing issues crossing professional boundaries. The walk home through darkening streets provides opportunity for reflection on daily accomplishments and tomorrow's challenges. The familiar sounds and smells of the neighborhood create comfort after hours of concentrated labor and social interaction. Master craftsmen use these quiet moments to process experiences and plan adjustments to workshop routines or business strategies. Home preparation for evening family time includes transition from workshop concerns to domestic responsibilities that require different types to energy. The of-attention and successful artisan learns to compartmentalize professional stress while remaining emotionally available for family relationships that provide essential support during challenging periods. This balance between work and personal life proves crucial for long-term well-being and sustainable productivity. Evening household activities include maintenance tasks postponed during busy daytime hours, when workshop demands receive priority attention. Equipment cleaning, material organization, and space preparation for tomorrow's activities ensure efficient startup of next day's operations. These routine tasks seem mundane, but prove essential for maintaining productive capability and professional reputation. Children's evening education includes practical instruction in domestic skills complemented by moral teaching that shapes character development. Parents use everyday situations to illustrate proper behavior, work ethics, and social relationships that will guide future success. This integrated approach to child rearing produces adults who understand both technical competence and personal integrity as requirements for community acceptance. The evening meal conversation reveals family dynamics that balance individual needs with collective welfare while maintaining respect for traditional hierarchies and gender roles. Each family member contributes information and perspectives that inform household decisions affecting everything from daily routines to long-term planning. These discussions demonstrate democratic principles operating within patriarchal structures. Mehmet's evening reflection on workshop operations includes evaluation of apprentice progress, customer satisfaction, and business developments that might affect future prosperity. The successful craftsman treats each day as learning opportunity while identifying patterns and trends that guide strategic planning. This analytical approach separates thriving enterprises from those that merely survive through luck and persistence. The neighborhood's evening atmosphere reflects community solidarity built through shared challenges and mutual assistance during difficult periods. Families that prosper share resources with struggling neighbors while understanding that collective individual success. These recipe welfare ultimately supports local relationships, create social safety networks that make urban life sustainable for working-class populations. Ahmed's evening observations include noting how successful craftsmen integrate technical competence with business acumen, social skills, and moral character. The young man begins understanding that long-term success requires more than manual dexterity and artistic talent. The development of mature judgment, reliable character, and community respect proves equally important for sustainable craft enterprise. Evening workshop cleanup includes systematic organization of tools, materials, and workspace that facilitates efficient operations while protecting valuable investments. Each implement receives proper care and storage, while materials are secured against theft, damage, or contamination. These maintenance routines seem tedious, but prove essential for preserving productive capability and controlling operational costs. The gradual transition toward night involves banking the forge fire to preserve coals for tomorrow's startup, while ensuring complete safety from accidental ignition. This process requires understanding of fire behavior and combustion principles that extend beyond simple craft techniques. Master craftsmen develop expertise in workshop safety that protects both immediate welfare and long-term business viability. Family bedtime preparations reflect religious observances, combined with practical considerations for rest and comfort in modest living quarters. Evening prayers provide spiritual closure for daily activities, while simple sleeping arrangements maximize use of limited space. The integration of sacred and practical elements characterizes traditional Islamic domestic life throughout the Ottoman Empire. Ahmed's final evening responsibilities include security checks and preparation for tomorrow's early start that begins the cycle anew. The young man has learned to anticipate requirements and prevent problems through systematic attention to details that less experienced workers might overlook. Such reliability demonstrates growing maturity while justifying increased trust and responsibility. The sounds of evening settlement throughout the artisan quarter create familiar soundtrack that provides comfort and security for families whose prosperity depends on community stability and mutual support. Each household contributes to collective welfare, while pursuing individual success through cooperation rather than destructive competition. These balanced relationships sustain urban craft communities across generations. Mehmet's final thoughts before sleep often focus on gratitude for daily blessings, combined with hopes for continued prosperity and family welfare. The successful craftsman understands his dependence on divine favor, community support, and personal diligence working together to create sustainable livelihood in uncertain economic environments. This balanced perspective provides emotional stability during challenging periods. The workshop settles into nighttime quiet as tools rest in organized arrangements, awaiting tomorrow's productive labor. The space that has witnessed hours of concentrated effort now waits in patient silence for another cycle of transformation that will convert raw materials into objects of beauty and utility. The rhythm of craft production continues its ancient dialogue between human skill and natural materials. The night watch begins its rounds through the artisan quarter as families settle into sleep, protected by community vigilance and mutual concern. These guards represent collective investment in security that allows individual workshops to operate without constant fear of theft or vandalism. The shared responsibility for neighborhood safety demonstrates cooperative principles that make urban craft life sustainable. Evening's gentle transition into night brings temporary pause to the endless rhythm of productive labor that sustains Ottoman urban civilization. The craftsmen who have shaped silver, wood, and clay throughout the day now rest in modest homes, surrounding workshops that will resume their patient transformation of materials when dawn calls workers back to ancient dialogue between human hands and resistant matter. The darkness that gradually envelops the artisan quarter doesn't represent cessation, but renewal. As sleeping craftsmen gather strength for another day of patient labor that will continue traditions stretching back through countless generations. The skills that rest tonight in tired hands will wake tomorrow ready to resume their quiet contribution to the great ongoing project of human civilization, built one careful hammer blow at a time. In the silence between today's accomplishments and tomorrow's possibilities, the workshop district embodies both continuity and change that characterizes living tradition. The techniques that guide master craftsmen connect present practice with ancestral wisdom while remaining flexible enough to adapt to changing circumstances and customer requirements. This balance between preservation and innovation sustains craft communities through centuries of political and economic transformation. The sleeping quarter holds within its narrow streets and modest buildings the accumulated knowledge of generations who have learned to transform raw materials into objects of lasting beauty and practical utility. The wisdom that guides these transformations will wake with tomorrow's sun, ready to continue its patient work of creating civilization through the marriage of human skill with natural resources shaped by devoted hands and refined sensibilities. The workshop district stirs with the first whispers of pre-dawn activity as night watchmen complete their final rounds. In the darkness above his carefully organized workspace, Mehmet shifts slightly on his thin mattress, his craftsman's instincts already sensing the approaching time for morning prayers. The rhythm that has governed his life for 2 decades prepares to resume its ancient cadence, drawing him back into the endless dialogue between skilled hands and precious metal. Ahmed's breathing changes in the corner of the workshop where apprentices sleep among the tools of their future trade. 3 years of training have conditioned his young body to wake naturally before the call to prayer, understanding that preparation begins in darkness and that success accumulates through countless small advantages gained by those who rise while others slumber. His movement from sleep to wakefulness carries none of the reluctance common to his age, replaced instead by the quiet eagerness of someone discovering his life's purpose. The transition from night's restoration to day's productivity follows patterns older than the empire itself. In modest homes throughout the quarter, craftsmen's wives begin their own preparations, managing household rhythms that must synchronize with workshop demands while maintaining the domestic foundation upon which all productive labor depends. Children stir in family sleeping areas, gradually absorbing through daily repetition the discipline that will shape their adult understanding of work, responsibility, and community obligation. The sounds of awakening community create subtle symphony that experienced ears learn to interpret like written music. The creak of wooden shutters opening indicates which neighbors have risen early to maximize productive hours. The soft splash of water in courtyard basins tells of ritual ablutions beginning throughout the district. These quiet indicators of community health and readiness provide reassurance that another day of collaborative prosperity approaches with proper preparation and shared commitment. Mehmet's morning routine begins with the careful attention to spiritual obligation that gives meaning to all earthly labor. The cold water of ritual washing shocks away sleep's lingering hold while preparing both body and mind for the precise work ahead. Clean hands show respect for precious materials that respond poorly to contamination. Fresh clothing prevents the transfer of oils and debris that can affect silver's behavior during critical heating and shaping operations. The workshop transformation from sleeping space to productive center follows established procedures that maximize efficiency while protecting valuable investments. Ahmed moves through familiar darkness with growing confidence, his hands finding tools and materials by touch alone. The careful arrangement of workspace reflects not merely practical organization, but spiritual understanding that order in physical surroundings supports clarity of thought and precision of action. The forge awakening requires patient coaxing of flames from carefully banked coals, preserved through the night hours. Too much air extinguishes struggling embers, while too little starves them into cold ash. The balance comes through accumulated experience of hundreds of similar mornings, when steady breath and gentle persistence transformed dormant fire into reliable heat source. These moments of quiet concentration prepare both space and craftsman for the demanding work ahead. The relationship between master and apprentice deepens through shared participation in these pre-dawn preparations, when the absence of customers and distractions allows for focused instruction. Ahmed's questions reveal growing understanding of craft principles that extend beyond simple technique to include business awareness, customer psychology, and community relationships. The young man's intellectual curiosity suggests potential for advancement beyond mere technical competence toward true mastery. The first call to prayer drifts across Istanbul's 7 hills, carried by morning air that hasn't yet warmed enough to create thermal currents that scatter sound and make precise timing difficult. This daily summons structures not just religious observance, but the entire rhythm of productive labor, creating natural divisions in the working day that prevent excessive fatigue while ensuring adequate time for both worldly and spiritual obligations. The small mosque serving this section of the artisan quarter fills gradually, with men whose calloused hands and silver-stained fingernails identify their trades as surely as any guild badge. The imam's voice leads familiar recitations that connect these working craftsmen to believers across the vast Ottoman domains, while reinforcing community bonds that make competitive marketplace relationships supportive rather than destructive. Prayer creates temporary democracy, where social distinctions yield to shared devotion. The walk back through narrow cobblestone streets provides opportunity for informal conversations that often prove as valuable as formal business meetings. Mehmet encounters Hassan, whose religious metalworking specialization complements his own secular focus. Their discussion reveals potential collaboration on a prestigious mosque commission that could occupy both workshops for months while establishing reputations with influential religious patrons, whose recommendations open doors throughout the city. Morning light reveals the workshop with fresh clarity that shows both yesterday's accomplishments and today's challenges. The silver bowl approaches completion, its polished surfaces beginning to reflect the quality that justifies premium pricing and builds customer loyalty. Other projects in various stages of development create steady workflow that maintains income while advancing the craftsman's reputation for reliability and artistic excellence. Ahmed's morning responsibilities expand beyond basic maintenance to include evaluation of work in progress and preparation of materials for complex operations. His growing ability to anticipate problems and suggest solutions demonstrates developing judgment that will eventually qualify him for independent practice. The apprentice who learns to think systematically about workshop operations prepares himself for the challenging transition from supervised labor to entrepreneurial responsibility. The morning customer brings news from the broader city that affects pricing strategies and production planning throughout the artisan community. Political developments in distant provinces have disrupted trade routes carrying precious metals, forcing craftsmen to rely more heavily on recycled materials while adjusting prices to reflect increased costs. Such information travels quickly through craft networks, allowing individual workshops to respond before shortages become critical. The breakfast shared by master and apprentice consists of simple foods chosen for their ability to provide steady energy without the heaviness that impairs fine motor control. Flatbread baked in the neighborhood communal oven, white cheese preserved in traditional brine, olives cured through methods unchanged for centuries. These foods represent not luxury, but careful selection based on understanding of nutrition's relationship to productive capability and mental concentration. The morning work session begins with operations requiring the acute visual precision possible only under optimal natural lighting conditions. Mehmet examines the silver bowl's engraved surfaces with critical eye, trained through decades of experience. noting subtle imperfections that escape detection during yesterday's concentrated labor. The ability to evaluate work objectively, without bias created by hours of focused effort, develops slowly through years of practice and frequent humbling discoveries. The relationship between craftsmen and materials reveals itself through countless small interactions that demonstrate accumulated knowledge about metal behavior, tool performance, and environmental factors affecting quality outcomes. Silver responds differently to hammering at various temperatures, requiring constant adjustment of technique based on visual and tactile feedback that cannot be captured in written instructions. This intuitive understanding separates master craftsmen from technically competent but unimaginative practitioners. Ahmed's education continues through observation of problem-solving approaches when unexpected challenges arise during routine operations. This morning, a commissioned piece shows signs of internal stress that weren't apparent during initial shaping phases. Rather than discarding previous work, Mehmet analyzes the situation carefully, determining whether strategic heat treatment might restore workability or whether different techniques must be employed to achieve desired results. The workshop atmosphere becomes increasingly social as morning concentration gives way to collaborative activities that strengthen professional relationships while advancing individual projects. Fellow craftsmen arrive seeking technical advice, business consultation, or simple companionship during breaks from their own demanding work. These interactions create informal networks that supplement formal guild structure while providing emotional support during challenging periods. The Guild Inspector's morning visit represents supportive verification rather than hostile oversight, ensuring that workshop output maintains standards upon which all members' reputations depend. The examination process reveals careful balance between individual creativity and collective quality requirements that prevent substandard products from damaging community reputation, while allowing for artistic innovation within established parameters. This collaborative approach to quality control benefits everyone while maintaining competitive edge in demanding markets. Morning brings different types of challenges as customers arrive with special requests, unusual materials, or modified specifications that test craftsman adaptability and problem-solving skills. A physician seeks medical instruments, requiring specialized knowledge of functional requirements beyond mere aesthetic considerations. A wealthy merchant's wife desires jewelry incorporating precious stones that demand different techniques than traditional silver working. These diverse projects prevent routine monotony while expanding technical competence. The economic realities governing artisan life become apparent during morning discussions of material costs, labor pricing, and market conditions affecting workshop profitability. Raw silver prices fluctuate based on political stability, mining output, and international demand patterns that individual craftsmen cannot control, but must accommodate through careful business planning. Success requires balancing quality maintenance with cost control in ways that preserve customer satisfaction while ensuring sustainable income. Mehmet's morning instruction of Ahmed includes discussion of customer relations and business practices that don't appear in traditional craft training, but prove essential for long-term success. The young customer credit man learns to evaluate worthiness, structure payment schedules protecting workshop cash flow, and handle disputes about quality or delivery timing without damaging professional relationships. These diplomatic skills often determine survival in competitive urban markets where reputation affects everything. The workshop's morning productivity reflects systematic approach to complex projects requiring coordination of multiple operations across extended time periods. Different pieces demand different tools, techniques, and timing, creating scheduling challenges that experienced craftsmen handle through intuitive understanding developed over decades. The master who manages workflow efficiently maximizes both quality and profitability while minimizing waste and customer dissatisfaction. The morning light reaches optimal quality for detailed metalworking operations as the sun climbs higher over Istanbul's domes and minarets. This natural illumination reveals surface imperfections invisible under artificial lighting, while providing the visual acuity necessary for precision engraving and decorative work. Master craftsmen learn to time their most demanding tasks to coincide with these brief periods of perfect working conditions. Ahmed's growing competence becomes apparent in his ability to assist with increasingly sophisticated operations without constant supervision. The young man now prepares tools correctly, selects appropriate materials for different applications, and recognizes quality problems before they become serious defects. Such progress indicates readiness for advancement within the apprenticeship hierarchy that eventually leads to journeyman status and independent workshop operation. The sounds filtering through workshop windows tell the story of community awakening to another day of productive labor. Hammering from metalworking districts creates steady percussion that will continue until evening. Voices of merchants opening market stalls mix with calls of street vendors beginning daily rounds. Children's laughter mingles with mothers' instructions as domestic routines synchronize with commercial activities throughout the quarter. The morning customer consultation reveals social dynamics surrounding luxury craft production in Ottoman urban society. Wealthy patrons don't simply purchase objects, but participate in extended negotiations about design, materials, timing, and cultural significance. These discussions require craftsmen to function as diplomats, balancing artistic integrity with customer preferences, while maintaining profitable business relationships that generate repeat commissions and valuable referrals. Mehmet's morning evaluation of workshop progress includes assessment of both immediate accomplishments and long-term strategic positioning within competitive marketplace. Each completed project contributes to reputation building, while providing income supporting family needs and business reinvestment. The successful craftsman treats daily operations as components of larger career development, requiring constant attention to quality, efficiency, and customer satisfaction. The morning break for tea provides opportunity for informal instruction about industry trends, guild politics, and economic developments affecting all artisan families. Recent changes in tax collection procedures require workshops to maintain more detailed records of materials and sales. New regulations governing apprentice treatment reflect government efforts to prevent exploitation, while ensuring adequate skill transmission across generations. The neighborhood's morning social life includes interactions between families whose economic success depends on mutual support and collaborative problem solving. Information about potential customers, material sources, and market opportunities circulates through informal networks supplementing formal guild communication systems. These relationships aren't merely social pleasures, but essential survival mechanisms that make individual prosperity possible within competitive urban environments. The workshop's morning rhythm includes attention to multiple projects simultaneously occupying workspace and craftsman attention. A ceremonial dagger requires handle decoration, using techniques different from bowl engraving, but employing similar principles and tools. A set of serving spoons needs final finishing touches before delivery to customer whose patience has already been tested by unavoidable delays. Managing multiple deadlines while maintaining quality standards requires organizational skills that separate successful enterprises from struggling competitors. The morning light begins its gradual transition from crisp clarity optimal for precision work toward warmer tones that characterize approaching midday. This changing illumination signals upcoming shift workshop inactivities as operations requiring acute visual precision give way to tasks dependent moral feedback on tact and accumulated experience. Master craftsmen learn to structure daily schedules around natural lighting cycles that optimize working conditions for different types of operations. Ahmed's morning observations include noting how successful craftsmen integrate technical competence with business acumen, social skills, and community relationships. The young man begins understanding that sustainable success requires more than manual dexterity and artistic talent. Character development, reliable performance, and ethical behavior prove equally important for long-term prosperity in markets, where reputation determines everything from customer loyalty to guild advancement opportunities. The economic calculations occupying Mehmet's thoughts reveal complexity of craft business management extending far beyond simple production concerns. Material costs, labor time, overhead expenses, and competitive pricing must balance against customer expectations, quality standards, and profit margins necessary for family support and workshop reinvestment. These financial considerations influence every decision from project acceptance to technique selection. The morning workshop atmosphere reflects comfortable rhythm of established routine, punctuated by occasional challenges that test craftsman's skill and adaptability. Unexpected problems with material behavior, tool performance, or customer requirements create opportunities for creative problem solving, while providing teaching moments for apprentice development. The successful workshop handles such disruptions smoothly, without losing productivity or compromising quality standards. The guild system's morning influence appears through visits from representatives conducting routine inspections, collecting dues, and discussing policy changes affecting all members. These interactions aren't bureaucratic intrusions, but necessary maintenance of protective structure that ensures fair competition, quality control, and collective bargaining power with suppliers and government officials. Guild membership provides legal protection, social security, and professional identity that individual craftsmen cannot achieve alone. The morning progression toward midday brings awareness of daily accomplishments balanced against remaining work required for project completion. The silver bowl advances through final polishing stages that will transform tool-marked surfaces into lustrous finishes worthy of wealthy households. Other commissions move through various stages of development, creating steady workflow that maintains income while building reputation for artistic excellence and reliable delivery. Mehmet's morning instruction emphasizes principles extending beyond immediate technical requirements to include understanding of craft traditions, cultural significance, and artistic heritage connecting present practice with ancestral wisdom. The patterns engraved on silver vessels aren't arbitrary decorations, but visual languages linking contemporary craftsmen to centuries of accumulated knowledge about proportion, harmony, and spiritual meaning embedded in decorative arts. The workshop's morning productivity includes preparation for afternoon operations requiring different skills and attention patterns than precision engraving and detailed metalwork. Surface finishing, polishing, and assembly tasks allow for conversation and collaborative activities while advancing projects toward completion. This variety in daily operations prevents repetitive strain injuries while maintaining craftsman interest and engagement throughout long working days. The morning customer brings commission, requiring collaboration with craftsmen from complementary trades, creating opportunities for technical innovation while expanding professional networks. A wealthy patron desires complete table service incorporating both silver and ceramic elements, necessitating coordination between metalworkers and pottery specialists. Such projects demonstrate craft community cooperation while generating substantial income for participating workshops. Ahmed's morning responsibilities expand to include basic business calculations and customer interaction under careful supervision. The young man learns to estimate material requirements, calculate labor time for different operations, and explain technical processes to customers without revealing trade secrets or compromising competitive advantages. These commercial skills complement technical training while preparing him for eventual independent practice, requiring both artistic and entrepreneurial competence. The morning light reaches its peak intensity as the sun climbs towards zenith, creating optimal conditions for operations requiring maximum visual acuity and precision. This natural illumination reveals subtle details invisible under artificial lighting, while providing energy and alertness necessary for sustained concentration. Master craftsmen schedule their most demanding work during these brief periods of perfect environmental conditions. The neighborhood's morning commercial activity creates backdrop of productive energy that sustains individual workshop operations. Merchants call prices for goods needed by craft families. Suppliers deliver materials required for ongoing projects. Customers examine finished work while negotiating terms for future commissions. This circulation of goods, services, and information creates economic environment within which artisan enterprises operate and prosper. The workshop's morning atmosphere reflects integration of technical competence with spiritual awareness that characterizes traditional Islamic craft practice. Each hammer blow, each precise cut, each patient polishing stroke represents not merely mechanical operation, but conscious participation in divine creative process. This understanding elevates mundane labor into meaningful activity that serves both earthly and heavenly purposes, while connecting individual craftsmen to eternal traditions. The morning transition toward midday prayer marks natural pause in intensive work, requiring acute concentration and steady hands. Operations approach logical stopping points rather than arbitrary interruptions, allowing for proper completion of delicate procedures while respecting religious obligations that structure daily rhythm. This integration of sacred and secular activities demonstrates balanced worldview that sustains traditional Islamic civilization. Mehmet's morning reflection includes gratitude for accumulated blessings, combined with awareness of challenges requiring continued diligence and community cooperation. The successful craftsman understands his dependence on divine favor, family support, and guild protection, working together to create sustainable livelihood. This humble perspective provides emotional stability while encouraging continued effort toward excellence in both professional and personal conduct. The sounds of midday approach filter through workshop windows as commercial activity shifts toward prayer preparation and afternoon rest periods. Voices become quieter, more contemplative. The urgent percussion of morning productivity gives way to gentler rhythms, appropriate for spiritual reflection and family gathering. These subtle changes in community atmosphere guide individual scheduling decisions while reinforcing shared cultural values. Ahmed's morning learning culminates in understanding that craft mastery involves more than technical skill development. Character formation, spiritual awareness, and community responsibility prove equally important for sustainable success. The apprentice who grasps these broader dimensions of artisan life prepares himself not merely for individual prosperity, but for meaningful participation in cultural traditions that transcend personal ambition. The workshop settles into natural pause as morning's intensive labor yields to midday's contemplative rhythm. Tools rest in organized arrangements while partially completed projects await afternoon attention. The space that has witnessed hours of concentrated creativity now prepares for different activities requiring community engagement and spiritual renewal. This balance between individual effort and collective participation sustains both personal development and cultural continuity. The morning light begins its subtle shift from sharp clarity toward the warmer, more diffuse illumination that characterizes approaching noon. This changing quality signals transition from work requiring acute visual precision toward activities allowing for social interaction and collaborative problem solving. The rhythm of productive labor adjusts naturally to environmental conditions while maintaining steady progress toward project completion and customer satisfaction. In the quieting workshop district, morning's accomplishments provide foundation for afternoon's different challenges, while demonstrating continuity that connects individual daily efforts to larger patterns of cultural transmission and economic development. The skills exercised during morning hours will rest briefly before resuming their patient contribution to the ongoing creation of civilization through marriage of human intelligence with natural materials shaped by devoted hands and refined sensibilities. The afternoon prayer call echoes across the workshop district as Mehmet carefully sets aside his engraving tools, the silver bowl's surface now bearing the intricate geometric patterns that will catch candlelight in wealthy dining rooms throughout the city. The rhythmic hammering from neighboring workshops falls silent as craftsmen throughout the quarter pause their labor, not from obligation alone, but from understanding that spiritual reflection sharpens the mind for precise work, just as whetstones sharpen blades. Ahmed follows his master through streets that have emptied of their morning urgency. the cobblestones worn smooth by centuries of artisan feet walking this same path to prayer. The young man's stride has gained confidence over 3 years of apprenticeship, no longer the hesitant shuffle of a boy overwhelmed by city noise and workshop mysteries. His hands, once soft and uncertain, now bear the calluses that mark his trade as surely as any guild badge. The slight tremor in his fingers speaking of muscles, learning to control precision tools. The mosque courtyard fills with familiar faces. Men whose stained fingernails and silver-dusted aprons tell their stories without words. Here stands Yusuf the copper worker, his arms bearing the distinctive burn scars that come from years of handling heated metal. There kneels Ibrahim the chainmaker, his permanently curved fingers shaped by decades of forming tiny links into endless spirals. The diversity of crafts creates temporary democracy under the mosque's arched ceiling, where skill and character matter more than the particular trade that fills a man's purse. The imam's voice carries across the gathered congregation, leading recitations that connect these working men to believers from Sarajevo to Baghdad, from Cairo to Crimea. The words aren't merely ritual but lifeline, tying individual struggles with stubborn silver and unforgiving fire to larger meanings that make daily labor bearable. In this moment, the silversmith's aching back shares dignity with the scholar's tired eyes, both servants in the same vast enterprise of human flourishing. After prayers, the walk back provides opportunity for conversations that often prove more valuable than formal business meetings. Hassan mentions rumors of a wealthy merchant family seeking complete table service for their daughter's wedding celebration, a commission that could keep multiple workshops busy for months. Such intelligence requires careful evaluation, but it represents the kind of opportunity that transforms modest craftsmen into prosperous masters whose recommendations carry weight throughout the city's commercial networks. The afternoon heat has begun building in the narrow streets, creating thermal currents that will make precision work more challenging as the day progresses. Experienced craftsmen understand these natural rhythms, timing their most demanding operations for optimal environmental conditions. The delicate engraving that occupied the morning gives way to polishing and finishing work that tolerates warmer temperatures, while still advancing projects toward completion. Mehmet's workshop receives its afternoon visitor in the person of Selim, a textile merchant whose wife desires silver serving pieces decorated with motifs complementing her family's carpets. The consultation reveals the complex relationships between different craft specializations, each supporting the others through shared aesthetic vocabularies and complementary skills. The successful silversmith maintains awareness of developments in related trades, understanding how furniture styles, textile patterns, and architectural fashions influence customer preferences for metalwork designs. Ahmed observes these negotiations with growing appreciation for the diplomatic skills required in customer relations. The merchant's wife has strong opinions about decorative elements, but limited understanding of technical constraints governing silverwork. Balancing customer preferences with practical limitations requires patience, creativity, and communication skills that prove as important as manual dexterity for long-term business success. The afternoon work session focuses on polishing operations that gradually transform tool-marked surfaces into lustrous finishes worthy of premium pricing. Each stage of abrasive progression removes scratches left by coarser materials while creating finer surface textures that enhance light reflection. The process seems almost magical to observers, unfamiliar with systematic approach that creates mirror brightness from dull, work-hardened metal through patient application of increasingly refined compounds. The relationship between craftsman and apprentice evolves during these less intensive work periods when conversation becomes possible without compromising quality outcomes. Mehmet explains pricing strategies that balance material costs against labor time while maintaining competitive positioning in crowded marketplace. Ahmed learns that successful craft enterprise requires understanding of psychology as much as metallurgy. reading customer motivations and market trends with same precision applied to judging silver temperatures. The workshop district's afternoon atmosphere becomes increasingly social, as individual concentration gives way to collaborative activities and community interaction. Children return from Quran school, their voices mixing with general noise of neighborhood life resuming after prayer break. Women emerge from houses to visit neighbors, draw water from public fountains, or inspect goods offered by traveling merchants whose donkeys navigate narrow streets with practiced ease. The afternoon light streaming through small windows creates constantly changing illumination conditions that experienced craftsmen learn to exploit for different purposes. The warmer, more diffuse light of later day reveals surface imperfections that might escape detection during morning's cooler, more directional illumination. Master craftsmen adjust work schedules to take advantage of optimal lighting for various operations, requiring different levels of visual acuity. Aishi's afternoon activities include marketing expedition to purchase ingredients for evening meal while gathering intelligence about community developments affecting artisan families. Her knowledge of seasonal price cycles, vendor reliability, and neighborhood credit relationships makes her an essential partner in family financial management. The domestic economy operates on principles as sophisticated as workshop business planning, requiring similar negotiation skills and resource allocation strategies. The conversation with female neighbors at the public fountain reveals informal information networks that supplement formal guild communication systems. News about wealthy families planning celebrations, government officials seeking ceremonial objects, or foreign merchants interested in Ottoman silverwork circulates through these domestic channels. Such intelligence often proves more valuable than official announcements for individual workshop planning and opportunity identification. Ahmed's afternoon education includes introduction to business record keeping and customer account management that will prove essential for eventual independent practice. The young man learns to track material costs, calculate labor time for different operations, and maintain documentation required by guild regulations and government tax collection procedures. These administrative skills complement technical training while preparing him for entrepreneurial responsibilities beyond mere craft execution. The workshop's afternoon productivity includes attention to long-term projects that require steady progress over extended periods without immediate completion pressure. A complex commission involving multiple ceremonial pieces demands systematic planning and careful time management across several weeks of intermittent labor. Such projects test workshop organization skills while providing steady income and reputation-building opportunities. The afternoon customer consultation involves delicate negotiations about design modifications requested after work has already commenced. The patron desires additional decorative elements, requiring extra materials and labor time, but resists proportional price increases that would fairly compensate for expanded project scope. Such situations test craftsman diplomacy and business judgment, requiring decisions that balance customer satisfaction against economic necessity. The economic pressures facing artisan families become apparent during afternoon discussions of household finances and workshop investment needs. Rising material costs, increased competition from imported goods, and fluctuating customer demand create uncertainties requiring conservative financial planning and careful risk assessment. The families that prosper learn to balance current consumption against future security while maintaining reserves for unexpected expenses or opportunities. The afternoon work includes tool maintenance and workspace organization that supports efficient operations while protecting valuable investments. Polishing compounds require careful storage to prevent contamination affecting their effectiveness. Abrasive materials must be kept separate by grade to avoid confusion that could damage delicate work surfaces. Systematic organization prevents time waste and material loss that erode workshop profitability over extended periods. The guild system's afternoon influence appears through visit from fellow craftsmen seeking technical advice about challenging projects beyond their individual expertise. These consultations strengthen professional relationships while advancing collective knowledge that benefits entire community. The master who shares information generously builds reputation for wisdom and generosity that often translates into referral business and collaborative opportunities. Mehmet's afternoon instruction of Ahmed includes discussion of quality standards and customer expectations that define professional reputation in competitive marketplace. The young man learns to evaluate finished work objectively, identifying subtle flaws that might escape casual observation but would disappoint discriminating customers. Developing critical eye for quality assessment proves essential for advancement from apprentice to journeyman status. The afternoon light begins transitioning toward evening's gentler tones as shadows lengthen and workshop activities adjust to changing environmental conditions. Operations requiring acute visual precision give way to tasks dependent more on tactile feedback and accumulated experience. This natural rhythm prevents eye strain while maintaining productive output through different types of work suited to various illumination conditions. The neighborhood's afternoon social life includes informal gatherings where craftsmen discuss technical problems, share innovative solutions, and maintain relationships supporting mutual assistance during busy periods or family emergencies. These conversations aren't merely social pleasures, but essential maintenance of community bonds, making individual survival possible in competitive urban environment where reputation and relationships often determine success. Ahmed's afternoon responsibilities expand to include quality inspection and problem identification that demonstrate growing technical competence and professional judgment. The young man now recognizes surface irregularities requiring correction, identifies tool wear needing attention, and anticipates material requirements for upcoming operations. Such capabilities indicate readiness for increased independence and eventual advancement within workshop hierarchy. The workshop's afternoon rhythm includes preparation for evening activities that will advance current projects while maintaining family relationships and community obligations. Different types of work suit different times of day, and successful craftsmen learn to structure their schedules around natural energy cycles, environmental conditions, and social expectations that shape daily life in traditional Islamic toward evening prayer brings awareness society. The afternoon progression of daily accomplishments balanced against tomorrow's challenges and opportunities. The silver bowl and rouse surface reflecting our seer's completion, its lust of patient labor and accumulated skill. Other projects advance through various developmental stages, creating steady workflow that maintains income while building reputation for reliability and artistic excellence throughout the broader community. Mehmet's afternoon thoughts include planning for evening instruction that will advance Ahmed's education while strengthening bonds between master and apprentice. The relationship extends beyond mere technical training to encompass moral development, business preparation, and cultural transmission that connects present practice with ancestral wisdom. This holistic approach to apprentice education produces craftsmen capable of sustaining traditions while adapting to changing circumstances. The sounds filtering through workshop windows indicate broader community transition from intensive afternoon labor toward evenings more social and contemplative activities. Voices become gentler, more conversational. The urgent percussion of productive work gives way to domestic sounds of meal preparation and family gathering. These subtle atmospheric changes guide individual scheduling decisions while reinforcing shared cultural values. The workshop begins its gradual transition from afternoon steady productivity toward evening's different rhythm that balances continued work with family obligations and community participation. Tools receive careful cleaning and organization, while projects reach natural stopping points that allow for proper completion of delicate operations. This systematic approach to daily closure prevents damage to work in progress while ensuring efficient startup of tomorrow's activities. Ahmed's afternoon learning culminates in understanding that craft mastery involves integration of technical skill with business acumen, social awareness, and spiritual development. The apprentice who grasps these broader dimensions of artisan life prepares himself for meaningful participation in cultural traditions extending far beyond individual economic success. Character formation proves as important as manual dexterity for sustainable prosperity. The afternoon light softens further as evening approaches, creating atmospheric conditions favoring different types of workshop operations. Surface finishing and assembly work proceed effectively under these gentler illumination conditions, where subtle shadows reveal textural variations invisible in harsh midday brightness. Master craftsmen structure daily schedules around these natural lighting cycles that optimize working conditions for various specialized tasks. The workshop district's afternoon energy gradually shifts from individual concentration toward collaborative activities and social interaction that strengthen community bonds while advancing personal projects. Fellow artisans visit to examine completed work, discuss technical innovations, or seek advice about challenging commissions. These informal networks supplement formal guild structure while providing emotional support during difficult periods. The relationship between master and apprentice continues evolving as afternoon's less pressured atmosphere allows for extended discussions about craft principles, business strategies, and life wisdom that cannot be transmitted through technical instruction alone. These conversations plant seeds that will influence Ahmed's development long after his apprenticeship concludes and he establishes independent practice in competitive urban marketplace. The afternoon workshop atmosphere reflects comfortable rhythm of established routine, punctuated by occasional challenges that test adaptability and problem-solving skills. Unexpected difficulties with material behavior, customer requirements, or tool performance create opportunities for creative solutions while providing teaching moments that advance apprentice education. The successful workshop handles such variations smoothly without compromising quality or productivity. The economic calculations occupying Mehmet's afternoon thoughts reveal complexity of craft business management, extending far beyond simple production concerns. Customer satisfaction, competitive positioning, guild obligations, and family support requirements must balance against material costs, labor time, and profit margins necessary for sustainable operation. These multifaceted considerations influence every decision, from project acceptance to pricing strategies. The afternoon progression toward evening prayer creates natural pause in intensive work, requiring sustained concentration and precise motor control. Operations approach logical completion points rather than arbitrary interruptions, allowing for proper finishing of delicate procedures while respecting religious obligations, structuring daily rhythm. This integration of sacred and secular activities demonstrates balanced worldview sustaining traditional Islamic civilization. The workshop's afternoon accomplishments provide foundation for evening's different activities while advancing long-term projects requiring steady progress over extended periods. Each day's labor contributes to reputation building, customer satisfaction, and financial stability that support both individual families and broader artisan community. The cumulative effect of patient daily effort creates prosperity and cultural continuity across generations. In the gradually quieting workshop district, afternoon's steady productivity yields to evening's gentler rhythm that balances continued work with family gathering and spiritual reflection. The skills exercised during daylight hours will continue their patient dialogue with precious metals and ancient traditions, creating objects of lasting beauty while sustaining human communities through marriage of individual talent with collective wisdom transmitted across centuries of devoted practice. The evening call to Maghrib drifts across the workshop district as the last hammer falls silent and the final file scrapes to rest. Mehmet straightens slowly from his workbench, his spine protesting after hours bent over delicate silver work, but his eyes bright with the quiet satisfaction that comes from another day of patient transformation. The bowl beside him gleams in the dying light, its surface now bearing the mirror finish that will reflect candle flames in some merchant's dining hall, carrying with it the invisible signature of skilled hands and devoted hours. Ahmed moves through the familiar ritual of workshop closure, his movements efficient and respectful as he secures valuable materials and banks the forge fire for tomorrow's awakening. 3 years have taught him that endings matter as much as beginnings, that the careful conclusion of daily labor protects both present accomplishments and future possibilities. His hands, no longer soft with youth, handle precious metals with the unconscious reverence that marks the true craftsman. The mosque fills slowly with men whose clothes bear testament to their trades. Silver dust on woolen sleeves, the peculiar stiffness of hands shaped by years of precise work, the quiet confidence of those who transform raw matter into objects of beauty through patience and skill. Here, in the gathering dusk, differences of wealth dissolve and status into shared submission before mysteries greater than any earthly craft. After prayers, the walk home through cooling streets provides space for reflection on daily accomplishments and tomorrow's challenges. Mehmet's conversation with Hassan reveals new possibilities, a commission for decorative elements in the district's expanding mosque that could occupy skilled hands for months, while establishing reputations with influential religious opportunities require authorities. Such careful cultivation, but they offer the kind of steady work that sustains artisan families through uncertain times. The evening meal in Mehmet's modest household above the workshop reflects both seasonal abundance and economic wisdom. Aishi has prepared rice pilaf, fragrant, with carefully hoarded spices, supplemented by vegetables preserved from autumn's harvest, and flatbread baked in the communal ovens that serve the neighborhood's domestic needs. The simple foods provide necessary energy while demonstrating the household management skills that make workshop life sustainable. Children's voices from the narrow street below mix with the gentle sounds of families gathering after another day of productive labor. Mothers call youngsters home from their games, while fathers return from markets and workshops, carrying news from the broader city and beyond. The rhythm of community life shifts from individual focus to collective engagement, weaving bonds that make urban existence supportive rather than merely competitive. Ahmed's evening responsibilities include final inspection of workspace security and preparation for tomorrow's early start. The valuable materials must be properly stored, tools cleaned and organized, the forge prepared for efficient lighting. These tasks seem routine, but they represent the foundation of professional practice, the attention to details that separates successful workshops from those that struggle despite superior technical skills. In the darkness before dawn, the artisan quarter rests, but never truly sleeps. The tools wait in their appointed places, the silver gleams softly in organized chests, and the banked fires hold their patient heat for morning's return. These craftsmen didn't build monuments to themselves or carve their names in marble, but their quiet devotion to beauty and precision shaped an empire more surely than any sultan's decree. Sweet dreams.